Hey everybody, welcome back. I think all audio should be good here. I was just plugging my phone in, so give me a second as I do that. But how are you guys doing? Today was a bit of a weird day for me. The power went out like 2 hours ago, and it gave me a bit of a scare on whether or not I was going to do my live stream today. But regardless, we are here. We're gonna make some cool stuff today. I figured since today is a Star Wars kind of weekend, where May the 4th be with you guys. Yep, it looks like my audio is working. I'll just double checking. But since this weekend is more of like a Star Wars kind of weekend, May the 4th be with you. Revenge of the 6th is tomorrow. Well, that means that today, right in between the Cinco de Mayo day, we are going to create some artwork. I thought it'd be fun to make a cool scene from Star Wars that maybe really I looked through a bunch of different photos, and what's the most inspirational type of photo that I felt like we could accomplish on a live stream. The other problem is that we can make a really big piece of art, but it'll take a lot of time, and like a lot of 3D modeling can go into creating the spaceships and all that fun stuff. But I thought what might be a fun kind of look at would be to work on the Tatooine shot. So I grabbed this piece of footage here. This is or not piece of footage, it's just a still image, but this still image here, I figured we could recreate this shot inside of Blender. We'll start by modeling out the kind of igloo shape hut, a house, and then maybe also creating some of these boxes over here and different crates and stuff like that, and then of course building the entire environment as we're going along. So this will be our rendering that we're going to create today. I'm not going to do Luke standing on the edge here. I just don't have the ability to create all that today, and as far as I know, my human gen that I have installed, it's just it's a little bit buggy. Like, it lets me import people, but it won't let me put clothes on them, and I feel like that's kind of important, unless we just want like a nude Luke Skywalker standing on the edge of the precipice there, just like looking off into the sunshine. Hey, that shot has a whole new meaning then, right? That shot has a whole new meaning. But regardless, a key sign, welcome into the chat. Thank you for joining the stream today. I think this will be a fun one for sure. If you guys want to grab this photo, feel free to grab it. I just searched for Star Wars A New Hope, like sun's shot, I think, and then this popped up. And this is a pretty straightforward render. I mean, there's honestly not too much stuff to build here. I just thought it'd be fun to do some texturing on the house and do all that kind of work. So without further ado, let's jump over into Blender. I'm just going to delete our default cube here. I already have our background camera or our background image set up. And yeah, we're just going to kind of line up our scene here. I figured just setting up a 3D cursor, maybe even adding in an image plane just to see what that ground looks like. Just primarily setting up our scene to work for us. How's your guys' week? How have you guys been? It's been a bit hectic for me. You guys follow me on LinkedIn or not, but or on Instagram. I just went into pre-production on a new film that I'm really excited about. That we're shooting in Atlanta this coming, I think it's going to be end of May, beginning of June. Like, I know that I'm flying out there, I think, this is the plan currently. My birthday is May 25th, and I'll be flying out anyways the day after my birthday. Now, of course, the scheduling things can change and all sorts of stuff, but it is just like wow, okay, great. So I'm just going straight into it, and I'm really excited about what we've got going on. There's some casting announcements that are already out there, and then I did share that, so if you guys saw that article, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's gonna be a fun horror film, and so there's some pretty creepy effects that we'll be doing inside of it that I can't wait to show you guys in probably 6 or 7 months when everything's out. So right now that I got my ground set up here, I think the important thing is going to be kind of laying out the different areas. It's been a while since we really done, well, I say a while, but I know that we just did It was the lonely animation shots that took just a minute because it was 2 different streams that we had for that, and that's just what made it feel more time consuming. Let's grab this and just line that up with the edge. We know that this is the front edge of the house, and so I'm just going to kind of scale things from there. It's probably the best way, just to get everything lined up. Yeah, a little Star Wars-esque, right, Ben? I think my idea was just to do something a little more Star Wars related, because I was like, why not? Hey, let's do some themed renders here. I'm gonna move this up and just kind of scale things down. I'm going to generally block out the scene, of course, where we'll go in later and get everything to fine-tune later, but I like to just get the shapes to be roughly where we want them. And honestly, the sphere is just kind of roughly the right size. I mean, we'll probably want it this closer to camera, I'm sure, but let's see what we got going on here. So I think if we add in a cube now, kind of position all of this stuff to be roughly the right area, and then that'll allow us to know. It's funny though, because I really like Star Wars, but you think you like Star Wars till you meet other fans. And all growing up, I loved Star Wars more than anyone I knew. And then it became like this thing where you go to college and you meet like actual huge fans, and they know the names of every droid and every, like, I'm sure this thing has a name here, and I unfortunately do not know what that name is. And so I'm sure I'll be criticized today on my namings that I'm giving to these different elements that as I'm grabbing them and moving them around. Let's see. I'm just gonna kind of rough out the model here for this object. I'm gonna say that it's probably has something to do with irrigation, because don't they live on an irrigation farm? This irrigation piping. And I like to roughly get the shape of everything down before we add in all the details later. That's probably fine there. I'm just jumping back and forth between face selection and edge selection, which for you it might be different shortcut codes, but mine's just 1 for vertices, 2 for edges, and then 3 for faces. And it allows me to just select everything really quickly. I remember when I first found that out, it was just like kind of like this mind-blown moment of like, wait a second, you could select stuff so much quicker than just, because I used to just only be in vertice selection mode. Create the smallest amount of bevel possible, and then there we go. That's going to be our first kind of like irrigation tube thing. The great thing about a lot of the elements that we're creating today is that they are literally just like, we duplicate it, paste it over here, and then we can just mirror it on like the x-axis or something like that, and we'll get pretty close to what we want already, and maybe make some slight adjustments or something, but ideally not too much. And we'll have this shape here. I think that's going to be coming out as well. So I'm going to actually create this on its side profile first, and then let's see, we need kind of like that circular piece here to come out. There's a few ways we could do that, I think. First of which will probably be grab this whole thing and move it in. I'm just going to make a thinner selection, of course. And I'm almost actually wanting to just delete that vertex altogether. And yeah, I'm going to just extrude that. And then we don't care about the bottom. We can fix the bottom edges here, but I think if I just extrude it outwards just slightly, we're just going to create this shape ourselves. Let's just scale upwards. Again, I don't really care even, I mean, just to make things simpler. Let's select the 3D cube aspect of it right now and just delete those vertices. We're just going to create the plane of where we want this thing to go. So I'm going to just grab this edge, extrude it. Just have to remember to move it on the x-axis. And again, x-axis here. And then now it's going to just go dramatically up. And then just keep doing this. I'm just looking at the top of the shape here. We're just trying to... kind of just moving this over. Did they? I guess they did. I was going to ask if they... I don't even remember because I feel like in my memory, the last Star Wars films that came out, I've kind of blocked out in my memory what they had in them. But I was gonna ask if they revisited Tatooine at all in those movies, and then I remembered the whole Rey Skywalker scene, and now I've got a flash of memories in my head that I don't want. Alright, and let's just scale this up just ever so slight. There we go. I think that's good. What I'm going to do now is we're going to use proportional grabbing here, and I'm just going to kind of stretch this out a little bit more. Maybe something like that should be fine. And if I say cursor to selected on that specific edge here, I'm going to set object, set origin to 3D cursor. And now if we mirror this, it's going to create ourselves that whole kind of other side to it. I think that's really good. The only thing I want to do past that is let's grab this edge here and let's just extrude it out on the x-axis here. We're just going to create a small amount of bevel, so we'll turn off proportional editing for that, and that's just a small amount of bevel. We can always add in more bevel later if we want to, but I think this is all we need. Now we don't need the bottom edge. I was only scaling it. There's I mean, this doesn't really matter because in the end of the day, all we have to do to fix this is just select the bottom here, scale Z, and then hit 0. Scale Z, 0. Oh, is my numpad not on? There we go. Okay, so my power went out, and that's why my numpad's not working. So yeah, my power went out. I was driving back from breakfast, and we're driving up, and we just see this huge crane fixing like a transmitter down the street, and it was like, wait, what's going on? And so we get back to the house and we realize that there's no power whatsoever. And I was like, shoot, the first thing I thought of was the live stream. I was just like, okay, great. Now what am I going to do about that? So that's why I messaged you guys on Discord saying that potentially there might be some issues or we'll have to push it or something like that. But looks like everything turned out, which is fantastic. I'm going to add in just a bevel node here and just kind of smooth that out slightly. Now it's just going to be taking this and lining it up with our scene here. So I'm going to scale it down. Kind of find the spot that it would sit in and the angle at which it would sit in as well. And I think that's pretty close. I'm just thinking that the height of it is a little high. I'm just going to grab this whole edge here and this edge here and just move everything down. Just kind of grab that over. Welcome back, Keysign. Welcome to the chat. We're just blocking out some Star Wars action here. And then this, honestly, will probably have it, let's see, is the solidify going in or out? I think I wanted to go this direction. we can have this go further out, but I mostly just want it to go into our building. And we're going to do something very similar to this, but on the front here, because that's where the walkway is going to be. Also, might be worth it for us to take this whole thing and just extrude it downwards to add in some ground. It's not super necessary other than the fact that we're going to want this walkway here to kind of like be going down into the ground. And I find Booleans just so much easier to work with than us having to, you know, do anything else. So I'm going to grab this and... Okay, let's move this entire hut here closer to this section, and then I'm going to rotate these and then place them up against the ledge here. Great. Your mic is a bit quiet. Well, I could turn up my audio. I'm sure we could do that. I don't really mind. I'll boost it here, and then if it needs to be anywhere else, music is kind of drowning you out. Okay. Well, then let's fix these said problems. Okay. And then let me know if there's any more issues. I did just boost my audio and turn down the music slightly, but it's possible that... It's weird because I don't change my audio settings, and then I'll go to like a new stream, and there'll all of a sudden be problems, and I'm like, I don't know. Did anyone watch the Dark Empire movie Part 1 fan? I did not. I did not watch that. I do find with like Star Wars nowadays, I'm finding that like the fan creative projects are just so much better. And why is that? Like they have less resources. Is it just the passion? I refuse to believe that it's just the passion. Because to me, I'm like, there's got to be more to it than just that. Is it because there's too many cooks in the kitchen? Sometimes that happens with films. And it's really unfortunate too, because I feel like the director sometimes gets dinged for it when it's not the director's fault. And then the studio is just like, oh yeah, no, he had full creative control. In reality, he didn't. Or she didn't. I mean, we've seen that happen quite a few times. Especially on these like cinematic universe type things. Like there's so much more than just one film that's going into it. So you do think it's the passion. I'm wondering if it's the passion and it also has to do with the fear of money. Because these movies are made for so much money. It's crazy. Just to think about how much money these things are made for. Because I work on movies, but I mean, we don't work on movies that big. Yeah, the movies I work on were like, oh yeah, we've got like, and I know this sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not when it comes down to it, because it's still union films, but they'll have budgets of like, you know, a couple $1 million. And then you compare it to like these Star Wars movies where they have budgets of like 150 to 200 million dollars. That's wildly different. I'll even work on movies where we don't have millions of dollars. We have a couple 100,000. That's it. And you know, and that right there, that's where, you know, you're like scrapping to try to like do things for no money whatsoever. But yeah, I've worked on many films like that. Many films where they'll ask to do some kind of like VFX shot and they really can't afford to. Even simple stuff. Okay, and then I'm going to add like a bit of a handle here on the outside, I think, on top of it all. Let's see, I'm going to grab... We're just going to grab this edge here, and I'm just going to add like a bit of a dent to it. And then on the front here, I kind of want to add a bit of a handle. I'm really just recreating this thing here. It's very blurry, but I feel like that's like, you know, like one of those propane tanks? They've got like these handle edges on the bottom of it. And that's what I'm trying to recreate. Just do that. I'm going to probably add in like a subdivision surface here as well to really smooth things out. But then we'll do a handle as well. I'm going to duplicate the faces here and then make them their own object. If I do that, then what I can do is smooth it out firstly. Grab it. And let's do like a solidify here. And all I'm going to be doing is changing the thickness to go all the way through to the other side. And now, if I take this guy and add in a Boolean, let's apply the subdivision, and then I'm going to Boolean out this cylinder here. Such an interesting dilemma. So here's the thing. The solidify, I'm curious. Let's apply our subdivision, not do a solidify, grab everything, extrude it, and just have it go all the way through. That way, I think it'll be less buggy. Luke Skywalker's death was embarrassing in The Last Jedi. It kind of was. I think, here's my thought on it. They wanted to give him a good send-off and create like a whole new kind of like set of characters. I've thought a lot about this. I don't condone, or not, I don't even have to condone because I'm not even in the, no one gives a crap about my opinion. But I think that, like, at least with how they did it, they were trying to have good send-offs to the three main characters. And they did that with the first one, they killed off Han. The second one, they killed off Luke. The third one, they killed off Leia. And it was kind of like their moment of saying goodbye to each one of those characters. And then now, hey, we've got this new universe of new characters that we're going to play with. I guess, for me, that they maybe should have just left those characters be and then just explored different characters in different parts of the universe. Lots of books and comics to follow the history. Yeah, I mean, well, they had a lot of resources of things that they could have used. That's for certain. Let's apply that. And if I delete this now, oh, that did not work. Sometimes swapping it to fast just works. I don't know why exact doesn't work, but I think swapping it to fast, yeah, there we go. That just magically works sometimes. But yeah, now we're going to get ourselves a handle here for our kind of propane tank thing. How do we make this look more like a propane tank and less like a trash can? Because I think that's the problem that I have with this right now, is that this feels too much like a trash can. Yeah, I feel like Star Wars is one of those things where every time I think about it, I just get angry. Who dies like that? Han Solo's death was cool. Han Solo's death was pretty cool. Well, with Leia, they really couldn't do much. I mean, unfortunately, she had passed away, but and that's you know, kind of the sad part there. But that is just like how that, I feel like, turned out. I think I understand why they did what they did. I just seemed like they could have done it slightly better to do justice to the characters, but I think it's really easy for us to be like, oh, Rian Johnson sucks, but Rian Johnson's not a bad director, obviously. I mean, have you guys seen Knives Out? That movie is phenomenal. Have you seen Jumper? Have you seen oh, sorry, that's not Jumper, it's Looper. Looper's a crazy good movie. If you guys haven't seen that, check that movie out. So from the camera's angle, that's what that'll look like. I'm thinking we'll want to have one more thing behind it. I know that this currently doesn't, but let's duplicate this and rotate this around on the x-axis here, or on the y-axis here, 90 degrees. And there we go. Ryan doesn't understand what Star Wars. I mean, again, I think we got to be careful here. That might be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm also just saying that sometimes there's a lot more to it than just the director. And it has more to do with, well, obviously not budget in this particular instance, but there could be a number of reasons why a film flops. And it could be because there's too many cooks in the kitchen as far as the story being written. And it could also be that maybe Rian Johnson does not understand Star Wars. But, I mean, you know who does understand Star Wars is Dave Filoni. And unfortunately, I feel like he made some really great Star Wars. That is some of the best Star Wars that we've had. But also has made some not so good Star Wars. I mean, you guys can argue with me if you want on that, but the truth is I to me, Ahsoka was meh, and then Mandalorian has gotten worse over the seasons. The first season was phenomenal. Second season was like, okay, that's not bad. And then the third season was really, I was not a fan of whatsoever. Boba Fett was completely bad. I'm not even going to argue with anyone on that one. If you guys think it was good, then you're just wrong, and that's just how that is. I feel like I had an opinion once though that, or I said on one of the streams once that the news, I say my typical thing about Star Wars, and then someone was like, "Well, you're wrong. The new Star Wars movies was great," and I was like, "Wow, okay, we are not on the same bandwidth of what great Star Wars is." It is what it is. Hey, Diego, welcome into the chat. By the way, hi, greetings from Uruguay. Well, hello, welcome in, Dennis. Thank you so much for joining the stream. We're just complaining about Star Wars around here. As I create like a bit of a tribute, like rendering of a Star Wars-esque thing. So that's how that works. So I'm going to subdivide the surface before, let's see, actually this is probably fine here. And then let's, no, I don't want to talk about Kenobi. I don't want to talk about Kenobi. We're not talking about Kenobi. Kenobi's banned. Also, I mean, hey, Kenobi's banned because Boba Fett, I felt like could have been good. Well, okay. I know it could have been good. What am I talking about? Boba Fett was like one of those things where I didn't care as much. I cared. He was one of my favorite villains from the original films, but I didn't care as much. What I did care for, though, was Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker and that whole storyline. And that really just, wow. Dad did not deliver. Let's create this little thing over here. And I truly believe that maybe what it comes down to is just, I don't know. I was talking about this yesterday with my buddy. I'm wondering if it has something to do with budgets. Do they really have infinite budgets? You know, how are they making their decisions on where this money's going? Sometimes the stuff just feels so cheap to me. I like specifically the stuff from Boba Fett felt cheap. I just felt like they were cutting corners on everything, and then they would be like, okay, now this is our designated expensive fight scene that we're going to have. It's like, that's so bad. Like I could tell from a mile away that like a fight scene was coming in. My other thing was with that I didn't like about Mando was that every episode felt very repetitive. Like they would be like, okay, he goes to this place because that's the information he got from the last episode. He's trying to drop the kid off. Okay. And he'd go to this place and then he'd be like, oh, I need you to help me. And they'd be like, I'll help you as long as you do this mission for me. Da 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 da. And then that was the whole episode. It was like constant like that, you know? And I just found that, you know, kind of repetitive. It felt very much like you know, like cable television, like back in the day they would make the episodes of like NCIS or something like that. That's where it felt more like that, because everything just felt so repetitive. Like they're going to do something and then it's not going to work, and then they're going to find a new fix, and then that's going to work. And then like even Star Trek, like old episodes of Star Trek like Next Generation and things like that, you could tell if it was a part 1 part 2 situation if the second time they tried something it didn't work as well. And it was like, okay, great. Now we're just going to go into the next episode where they're going to do the same formula. And every episode, didn't matter what aliens were in it or what, it was always kind of like the same thing over and over and over again. And that's what some of the Star Wars stuff that we've had felt like, was just more of that. Now, what I found really interesting by the whole thing was that we had why am I spacing on his name? What's the guy that plays Mandalorian? Why am I spacing on his name? Like Dave Bautista's in my head, and I know that's not that's a guy from Marvel. What is his name? He played in Last of Us also, and he was so good in that. And what I found really interesting by that was the fact that he's in that at the same time he's in Star Wars, and how like clearly you knew it wasn't the actor's fault that what happened, you know? And that to me was just kind of comical in a way, because you would go watch the Last of Us episode and you'd be like, wow, this is like great storytelling even. Like I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was just great storytelling. And then you would go watch Star Wars and you feel like you were almost cheated, because like it just felt shorter. The episodes were like 20 to 30 minutes long versus the, you know, hour-long episodes that you would get in The Last of Us. Yeah, Pedro Pascal. The P was in my head, and that's why I don't even know why Batista was there, but like that kind of like Pedro Pascal. Gotcha. He's also in Game of Thrones. Phenomenal actor. I like him. I think he's good. Let's But yeah, I mean, it was just always very interesting to have kind of like that direct comparison of like, oh, well, this is him in a different TV show that they're giving more time into the script writing on. I think that's what it was, right? Like, is that because like season 1 of a lot of these Star Wars shows are really good, but then they'll get to the next season and it just feels rushed. And maybe that's what it is. They're just rushing along instead of really taking their time to, you know, figure out what the story needs to be and where the characters are going to go. I don't know. I'm going to convert that to a curve here, and then that'll allow me to change the geometry of it to like a 0.1. Oh, that's a little big. I discovered doing that trick in the matrix render where like you could just take like vertices, you just alt select those vertices, and then all you have to do is convert it to a curve, and magically now you get like free detail that you're adding into your scenes. It's pretty remarkable. That way you don't have to create curves or anything like that. It's just, hey, we now have this extra topology there that's going to catch the light in like a nice way. Do that down here actually on these guys. Let's you do need the only trick with that. I just wish some of this stuff was a little bit more oh, what's that even called? You know, like I can go down the chain a little bit. The problem with a lot of this is I have to apply the topology in order to get those vertices rather than going into it. You believe Kenobi deserves a season 2? Oh man, do we want to? Like, I don't want them to touch it. I just think that, hey, let's leave it where it's at. also wasn't it originally planned to just be a limited series? I feel like I remember seeing that. I think they don't understand Star Wars, or they can create a new Star Wars without taking into consideration the Bible, the history of Star Wars. And that's true. And honestly, probably the best method for them to get away with this, so that way they don't have to worry about it, is why not just go to a time frame we haven't seen? I mean, the whole Star Wars lore is like thousands of years long. Why do we need, to use the characters that we already have or the timeline that we're already in? That could have been something that they could have easily avoided just by going to, if they wanted to do Star Wars and be like, hey, we're going to, I don't know, create more movies, right? The movies, not the TV shows, but like, hey, we're going to continue the Star Wars saga. Well, just do it in a time frame that no one's going to cry about. Because the problem with them creating it in this particular time frame is that everybody already is so familiar with these characters because it's the main time frame, and that's how it can like really screw with everything. To fix him, no, I don't think they need to fix him. I think they just need to let it alone. Like just let it be, as the Beatles would say. Let it be. Hey, yo, Kaisido, how you doing? Welcome into the chat. This is kind of an interesting shape. It's actually it's actually not like perfectly round. It's kind of like has like an oval-esque feel to it, at least from this angle. And I don't know if that's like I don't know. I'm just out here copying stuff. I'm going to just duplicate what we already did over here. And then we're just going to rotate that by 90 degrees. And let's just kind of line that up. We could also kind of like rotate that down. And the other thing is, let's just get the angle to be a little bit better. That's really good. And then now, just taking the same solidify function we have, we can literally just stretch that into our building. Camera angle is what's important. It is very important. And I think that right there. Let's actually, one second. Let's look at our marquee photo that I downloaded. Yeah, that all kind of lines up. I'd like to see the story of Yoda and his path to becoming the greatest. Yeah, and maybe I know that there was George Lucas talked about that once, where he kind of wanted certain things to be a bit more of a mystery. It's like you don't really want to see behind the curtain on some of this stuff. And maybe that is a story better left untold. I know that like he even like didn't really want to say where well, it isn't like Obi-Wan Kenobi from the planet of Ben. I think that's the planet he's from now. Like it's like a weird name. It sounded like, because he came up with that in the interview. Like there was an interview that he like said that was where he was from. And it just sounded like he made it up on the spot. But like, hey, that's the thing, right? It's about fantasy. You can kind of make that stuff up on the spot. You don't need to, as long as it fits within your story that you're doing. I think my concern, if they were to just continue what they're doing, or if they were to make a show about existing characters that we already know and love, is that my concern is that they'll just screw it up. And at this point, I'm like, hey, just don't touch the existing characters. Go make yourself new characters. I've always been for that. The idea of companies creating new IP based off of existing IP, I don't think there's a problem with that. And there's a good example of like a movie show thing that came out recently that I feel like a lot of people do like, which is the Ghostbusters franchise. I mean, they created brand new characters inside of that world that really don't mess around too much with the rest of the characters. And that way people don't feel like their beloved characters that they had from before are being screwed with. Because nobody wants it to feel like their characters that they grew up with, like Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is something that everyone grew up with, and now we all feel kind of like it's part of our storyline, our character. And as soon as, you know, Disney starts to change some of the stuff based off of that, that can make you feel like you're being attacked because you feel like it's part of your character story thing. And I understand that. And I think that's, you know, a problem that they're trying to figure out. But I think the easiest solution, honestly, is just don't use characters that everybody already likes. Make new ones. Gonna move that down and just kind of like line that up. I don't even know what this is. Is this a security camera? Maybe we're just creating security cameras right now. I'm gonna place this there and we'll just rotate it around slightly. Mostly just like roughing out. Oh, see, I got someone that agreed with me. Awesome. But I don't know. I mean, what do I know? I think that if they were to just create their own fresh characters, you're not going to be met by as much backlash, you know? Whereas you're changing pre-existing characters that everybody already likes and loves, then of course people are going to feel like that's part of them. And they feel like you're changing things that, you know, they loved and they grew up with. The other problem that they have is that are people going to go watch new characters that no one's ever heard of in a storyline that no one's ever heard of? Or are they going to want to watch characters that they already know that they like because, well, they know they like it? And I think that's the thing is the truth of the matter comes down to this. Are people actually going to go pay money to go watch a show or watch a movie with characters that they've never heard of? Probably less likely. And that's why Disney and these other companies with all their IPs are in a weird way kind of forced to make sequels because they know that people will at least watch that. But if they go make a new franchise, that probably it's not going to get as much love as, say, creating another Fast and Furious movie. That's why we've got 12 Fast and Furious movies, or 10, or however many we actually... I actually don't know how many we have. Kenobi Season 2 should talk about Kenobi taking care of Luke from the shadows and not babysitting the unbearable little Leia. I didn't think Leia was that bad. I think that, like, you know, so she wasn't bad because think about it this way. She's like was 6 or something like that, right? Like she was 6 years old. Of course, you know, she was going to be the way she was because that's how 6-year-olds act. Now, the thing that I was like, what the heck? It was like when she was running away in the forest from the bad guys. The bad guys. And we know they're bad because they had red lightsabers. But when she was running away from them, it was like, come on. There's no way, dude. There's no way. Just adding a little extra detail here. She was like running away in the forest and was outrunning like 4 fully grown men. It's like, since when are we living? Well, maybe, I don't know. She has the Force, guys. So maybe that's what it comes down to, is she has the Force. I'm just taking this. I think I'm going to duplicate it, scale it down slightly, and we're just going to place it here, I think. And let's actually take it into edit mode. We're going to duplicate it outwards to about right here. And then let's go back to wireframe mode. And then I want to grab this version and then move it outwards to about here. And that way we have two cubes kind of going on to the inside apex of this. I'm actually going to delete this cube. But what I'm trying to do is just add in some topology on the outside of this cube to make it feel kind of like it's extended or has extra detail to it. So I'll go to the modifier list here and add into a Boolean and select our cube here. I'm just going to select fast because I know that's going to work better. And then we could delete that. Now we've these kind of extra topology built into our cube here as if it's something special. On this side, though, to add in a grate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate or add in a bunch of edge loops here. And then if I duplicate these and then say P selection, let's go into the edit mode of these guys. If I select everything and delete only faces, I'm only going to have edges here. And if I convert this now to a curve, we're just going to add in a little extra grate, maybe make that a little bit bigger, and that's going to give it kind of like a vent look that we're barely going to see. Indiana Jones was more realistic with chases. That is true. And Indiana Jones is, I would say, out of like all the movies that they created like a sequel, I really loved Indiana Jones the best. I thought that did a great job. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I certainly liked it more than some of the other stuff that I've seen. It's hard to tell because at this point we're kind of just accepting anything that's like pretty decent. But my fear is I just kind of wish that audiences, they have a lot more power than I think they do. We're just like, hey, let's hope a movie's good. Well, don't just hope. If the movie's not good, don't go watch it. All right? Or, don't give them the money. That's the problem, is that we just keep giving money to these studios. And then they're like, oh, well, you know what? We made another $1 billion off this Star Wars movie. Let's just keep making them. And, they look at numbers on how successful a movie is. They don't look at anything else. Well, now that you mention it, something I have always hated about the franchise is that Stormtroopers don't know how to fire their weapons. That is a fair complaint. And I'm not even going to argue with that complaint. That is a fair and valid complaint. I think there's actually like kind of a reason for it. Well, their reasoning was that the training on the Stormtroopers was... Well, it's not Stormtroopers. Yeah, it is Stormtroopers, not clones. So the clones actually were able to hit their marks pretty good, but the Stormtroopers didn't. And so the reason why it had something to do with training, they were cutting back costs on training, so they would like not have as much training for shooting their guns, which is why they kind of sucked. Because ideally, it was all about economics, dude. Thinking that this kind of feels not too empty. Let's see. That's all just going to be texturing. Let's tackle this real quick before we move on to the rest of the environment. Because we're going to have to build kind of like this crater area over here. I could just add like bolts in and things like that, I suppose. But I might. Let's see. Well, let's work on that later. But right now, I'm just gonna add like another cube in, just kind of like roughing out like really basic, kind of primitive objects, and then we're just going from there. I want to have kind of like this half torus thing. I think we could do that with a torus. I don't know if this is something we would do with the torus. If you press Alt S, you can scale kind of like around the width of objects rather than that way you can make things a little bit more thick. I'm going to duplicate it and scale it down slightly. So the idea here is that I'm going to take this object now, and if we... let's add in a subdivide surface. I just want it to be a little bit smoother. And I'm going to do the same actually on this other one, because I want the cut to be smoother. But I'm going to apply that, to apply this, to add in a Boolean. Just using a lot of Booleans today, guys. It's like just an easy way of being able to cut things out. And just gives it some more of an interesting look sometimes. Is that a saddle over there? I just realized there's like a saddle, I think, right here. Just gonna grab that, move that over slightly. I'm thinking with this, it's kind of nice because all I have to do, since it's a separate object, is select this face here, and we can extrude that inward slightly. Just scale that kind of in, maybe about that much actually, and then we'll just extrude that all the way back here. Now we've got ourselves a pipe thingy. I don't even know, guys. And I'll just, if we select all of this as well, I'm just kind of adding in some more detail. We don't even, it's like kit bashing at this point. We've already created some of the objects that we're going to want in our scene, and then now we're just going to go through and find the other kind of little bits here and there that help fill the scene in a little bit better. Here we go. Just duplicate this whole thing and throw that behind this guy. Feels a little more layered, and also we don't know it's a duplicate. Even if we do think it's a duplicate, all we have to do is just select one of these. And that should be fine. I'm going to add in a bevel on top of it for this guy. I'm going to select this top one here, and then that way it's not clipping, because right now it's going into the building a little bit. Perfect. Go ahead and save that. So are you saying, Okaisido, that because the Stormtroopers are bad at their weapons, then that kind of justifies Leia being bad or really good at running away, and the guys chasing her being really bad at grabbing her. I can see that argument. Kind of want one more thing here. Let's grab a cube here. And I'm just going to add in an edge loop here in the center. And let's do that and just add in a subdivide surface. And that looks nice. It's just it's honestly pretty simple. It's nothing crazy. Let's apply this and duplicate it. I'm gonna scale this guy down. I just want to make this feel a little bit more like a saddle. So if I use another Boolean here, do the same thing to the other side. There we go. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's just... Sometimes the simplest things can work, so then we just take that and we scale it up. Honestly, we're not even going to see it, really. It's just going to be roughly there. And... that feels pretty nice. As long as it's got to feel somewhat full. Like, I mean, let's be real here. Like, it's got to feel kind of like they shove some stuff to the side of the house. You know how, like, the side of your house where, like, your garage cans are and things like that? You just throw all the crap you don't want people to see because it's the area that you never walk to? That's basically what this is, right? Like, we're just filling this in over here. I think that's... It's all the crap that Luke was supposed to put away. And it's like, Luke, go clean up the side of the house. And he's like, no, I'm looking at the sun's Aunt Petunia, or what was her name? Aunt Peroon. Oh, no, Aunt Maru. Aunt Maru. Let's take this guy here, and then I'm going to duplicate him and then scale him down slightly. And I'm going to use this to bevel the front here. I just want to have that kind of little poppin' first. So that's all good. And this just makes everything easier. Let's do that this way and then delete that. There we go. I mean, we're really not going to see it from this side. You say, well, if they can't shoot, well, maybe they can't run well. Maybe they have two left legs. There wasn't stormtroopers that were grabbing her, though. Weren't they like mercenaries or something like that? I thought it was mercenaries. Who knows what else they cut back on in training? Maybe they cut back on, you know, like pretty much everything. So it just came down to like, hey, we got to go grab this, you know, girl. And it was just bad training, bad people or whatever. That's hilarious. I'm going to add a cube in. I also want to copy the rotation here of the z-axis. So that way it's the same orientation. And then all we're going to do now is just line this up with kind of the front door of this thing. Quantity over quality. They're just like, yeah, we don't know who half these guys are that we're bringing in these days. You know, like the old guys, how they talk about how like, oh, this isn't how it used to be. Like back in my day, it's like back in my day, we actually taught them how to tie their shoes. or it's just like this issue of these stormtroopers are basically just not trained whatsoever. They're just straight out of middle school, just going straight into not even training. They're just like, oh yeah, here's a gun. Oh, that's funny. We can add a bevel in here, and then if we edit our bevel settings, we can actually change the I believe we could change the shape. Where is that at? Custom. And then we'll change the amount of segments here to more. And then let's change the preset here to steps. And then that's going to give steps down into our thing, which is fine. That's all good and dandy. Now, if we go back to solid view here, I'm going to go to modifiers list and then add in a Boolean and select our cube, hit fast, and now we delete that. It's going to have stairs that go down into the underground. Revenge of the Fifth? Yes, Revenge of the Fifth. Well, yeah, basic. I think technically, isn't it Revenge of the Sixth? Sixth. I can't remember. I don't know. I've always said Revenge of the Fifth or Revenge of the Sixth. I've used it interchangeably, and because I don't know. I celebrate all days. To me, are Star Wars days. We don't have no Star Wars days around here. Okay, I'm having an issue kind of seeing. Let's use can I turn on shading or something like that so that way I can actually see? That kind of works a little bit better. It's hard to see it when it's like I have a hole here in the ground. That's fine. It's just not. Like, look at that. It's like I can barely see that. And it's not me that's the problem. It's you. The Jedi make me puke? Any excuse to make it a Star Wars day. What do you mean the Jedi make you puke? What are you talking about? I love the Jedi. Although I don't know if this makes me a bad person or not, but is it like when you're a kid, you always kind of just like go, oh yeah, the Sith are just cooler? I don't know. I've always just been like more of a fan of the Sith. Everyone was always like, oh, what's your favorite character in Star Wars? And to me, everyone would say, Luke Skywalker, or I like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is amazing. And then I'm just sitting here going, dude, Darth Maul is badass. He's got a double-sided lightsaber and does the coolest acrobatics and one of the coolest fight scenes of all of Star Wars. I was like, yeah, it's freaking Darth Maul. Darth Maul is the coolest. Right? Am I weird in saying that? Am I allowed to say that I think Darth Maul is better? I don't know. You don't like the Jedi? The Sith are cooler, dude. The Sith are way cooler. And it's not even a contest. Why is our ground plane kind of incorrect here? Let's rotate this on the 3D cursor. I don't think we need to do that. If the ground plane can be in a different spot, I don't care. Now let's work on the crater now. I think that we're in a pretty good place as far as modeling is concerned for our hut over here. We don't really care about the front of the hut because we're not seeing the front. We're only seeing it from this angle. And that way, This is why we shotless things, guys. We've got our shot from this side of the camera. We don't need to see the other side of the hut, so we don't model anything over there. We're just creating all the stuff on this side, and I think like that kit bash method honestly works pretty well. I think when you're dealing with like sci-fi type things, you can get away with so much more. The Sith are evil. Yes, they are evil. Okay. Yes, they're evil. Thanks for calling it as it is. The design of Darth Maul is just awesome. It is cool. Like, it is cool. Also, I mean, like, when you watch the Star Wars movies, like 4, 5, and 6, just watch A New Hope all the way through Revenge of the Sith. And when you watch those movies, they don't really give you a great reason as to why the Sith are bad. They kind of just go, oh, yeah, the rebels are here, and we should root for the rebels. And I've always thought that. And I feel like I'm pretty validated in that thought because other people seem to have that thought as well. And then, of course, I mean, we get into the prequels and the sequels, and it's like, yeah, they're literally just bad. They're very evil. They're out here just trying to murk everyone, you know, because they want to have power. The Jedi are only as good as the world allows them to be. I mean, sure, it's you know, I think that's probably true. I mean, in general, the design of the characters for the dark, they are just way cooler. I mean, the comics and like all of the art design for everything is just way cooler. Way cooler. All right, so we're gonna have to scale everything. Ooh. Just scale everything to be a bit wider because that's what we want it to be. And maybe even just a little wider that way too. No, I mean, not too much. I'm going to grab this top piece here and just going to scale it down. Did you guys watch Fallout? New Fallout show that went out on Amazon Prime? I binged that whole thing in 2 days. Mostly because everyone was like, oh, it gets better. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, then let's just watch the whole thing all at once. I think I'm a huge binge show watcher person. I really like binging shows. I'm not much of a guy that likes to watch things over the course of weeks where it comes out 1 week at a time. I'm the kind of guy that's like, all right, I'm on this thing. Let's watch the whole thing at once. I didn't watch Game of Thrones, for instance, as it was coming out. I watched it in probably about a month. It was probably about a month. I just every night watched like 4 or 5 episodes. Watching from Africa. Oh, well, welcome in. Welcome into the chat. We're just making some Star Wars stuff here. But you guys have the real Star Wars over in Africa because that's where they actually shot the stuff. Over in like I think is it Nambia that they shot the stuff for like this stuff was shot in Nambia, right? You've seen the first 3 episodes of Fallout. It gets really good, dude. In my point of view, the Jedi are evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. And that is a fact. Not everything should be binged. I don't know. I'm a huge binger, dude. Huge binger. And we've had this discussion before. I like it, man. I like it. I like to just get through this stuff. Although maybe that's a bad thing. I've noticed this. So with Fallout specifically was the first time I realized why I like to binge stuff. It's because like I just want to get to the end of it. And I don't know if that makes it where it's like I'm not liking the TV show. I'm not enjoying the content. I'm enjoying knowing what happens on the show. So I enjoy seeing the whole story. So it's like I just want to get to the end of it so I've seen the whole story. And I love the story, and I really appreciate the characters and everything that goes into it. But I just want to get to the end of it. It's not about watching it and enjoying it as it's coming out. I think that's really what it is. I figured it out. Let's see. There we go. We're going to create... I'm trying to figure out how many lines this thing really has on it, and then we paint it as it goes. But maybe that's my problem that I've got to, reconcile with inside of myself as to why I like to binge shows. But Is that really a problem that I like to do that? I don't know. I don't think it hurts anyone else. I think it's my own. It's my own journey, if you will. Oh man. Let's add a bevel in here, and then let's just change the distance on this thing. I did watch this really cool talk at NAB when I went, where they were talking about using sizes of your bevel to control what the scale of your scene was. Because as long as the bevel size stayed consistent, then everyone would know what the size of an object was based off the bevel. Because if a bevel is really large on an object, then it would seem like that object, like the camera's really close to it, or it's like a really small object. And then that can throw your eyes off to whether or not an object is the correct scaling or if it just feels like CG. Darth Vader did bring balance to the Force. He did, actually. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing, right? He killed Darth Sidious in the end. He killed Darth Sidious in the end. So Anakin Skywalker did end up bringing balance to the Force. That's a fact. And that's what happened. Then boom, they come out with 789. Darth Sidious comes back. Why does he come back? I don't know, because that ruined the literal whole point of like A New Hope. Like that ruined the whole thing. And I think that was one of the things. When that came out, I was just like, come on, guys. Like we're ruining like Star Wars now. We're like actually changing the rules as to what the point of like what was the point? Oops, I accidentally duplicated it. What I'm trying to do is actually set the cursor to the selected item. But guys, this is a tribute Star Wars video, okay? We're tribute creating a 3D thing in Blender here. This is not a bashing Star Wars moment. I feel like it has turned into that, but that's like anytime I ever talk about Star Wars at this point, it's because I just really love it, and then I get sad. I get sad, guys. Little extra detail, just like a nice decal or something like that. 789 don't exist. I mean, can we pretend that they don't? Are we allowed to make that decision? I don't know that we're allowed to make that decision. I would agree with that decision if it were made, but I don't think we're allowed to. Darth Sidious? More like Barf Hideous? Whoa now. Don't be talking about him like that. He is one of the coolest freaking Sith there is, dude. He's also kind of my favorite, so I'm gonna join all these together. It's gonna help us with texture painting later, that's for sure. This, I suppose what we could do is we could also just parent this, but I'm thinking it might do us better, at least with the painting phase of things, to convert this back to a mesh and then to join this back into the real world. And now when we paint this box, it's actually going to paint both at the same time. Yeah, let's just take that and reposition it, and then those are fighting words, by the way. Barf Sidious, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And that's the thing, though, is that I never really got into the kind of like background character, not background, but like just like the other side storylines of how different Star Wars Sith came about and things like that. I wish I did. I never made that part of. I just never read any of the books, and I never did any of that, so I just wasn't part of. The things I have heard, though, I'm like, damn, why couldn't they do that? Kylo Ren is a dope name. It really is. Honestly, it's super dope. One of the coolest names. And he kind of, I really liked his character in that franchise. I didn't have a problem with him. I thought he was pretty good. I also think Rey had some good moments to her. She was just a bit of a Mary Sue. Kylo and Rey. I think we all I think we all kind of like shipped them from the beginning, and then when it's like when it finally did happen, you're like, wait, what? I wasn't serious. And then now she's like an actual Skywalker as well. Okay, so this is the creepy part, right? So she said that she was a Skywalker, or at least she was claiming to be, type of thing. Like, and I don't know if that was to mean that anybody can be a Skywalker or whatever the heck that logic was. But when she said that, does that make it incestual when they kissed each other? Like, because they kissed each other. Her and actual real Kylo Ren, Ben Skywalker dude, actually kissed each other. Is that a problem? Are we? Is that a problem? Should we talk about that? Because she certainly didn't get married. If that's what she's saying, like, oh, I'm taking on the name of Skywalker because we're married. Like, she wasn't. She wasn't married. Her dad was the son of a dude. I don't know, guys. Is this the dumb way of making this type of pipe? Someone please tell me that there's a better way than this. No way that's the only way to do this. It's a real problem. Guys, these are the problems we talk about, we think about, okay? Yeah, I hope it didn't mean anyone can be, but I look to be her as the real... But that's where the problem is, dude. If it's part of like, oh, this is part of the real family, it's like, you can't say that like, oh, well, we're just stepbrother, stepsister. Like, like that's not how it works. Like, if she is saying that she's part of the family of the Skywalkers and Ben is actually part of the family of the Skywalkers, then she's like, oh, well, you're like my brother. Dude, there's so many problems to that. There's so many problems to that. Like, and oh, you're like my cousin. Dude, come on. Please. Unless it's like, oh, anybody can be. And then it's like, okay, well, that might be different. I don't know. Is that different? Am I really going to have to make the pipe this way? This seems extraordinarily dumb. Well, I guess it is what it is. I don't like, I have to go every other and whatever. We'll do it this way. That's fine. Alabama, pretty much. I don't know. I mean, Star Wars takes place in Tatooine, which a good majority of it takes place in Tatooine, I should say. Not takes place in the galaxy. Far, far away, guys. Maybe their rules of engagement over there. Engagement are a little different than our rules. I don't know. I know it felt like a nice sentiment reading into it. It is pretty gnarly. You'd agree. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have a feeling they wrote it as like this, like, oh, well, this is cool because this is the Skywalker saga, right? So we need to have a Skywalker that's kind of like heading it up. And their twist ending on it was the fact that all the Skywalkers are dead. All of them are dead, guys. Every Skywalker is dead. Think about it. Luke's dead. Leia's dead. Anakin's dead. His mom only had him. His mom was not married to anyone because he was born through the Force. The line of the Skywalkers is gone. So I guess that's what they're thinking. I would say that's definitely what they were thinking when they wrote in. They were like, oh, well, this is just going to be like we're continuing the legacy of the Skywalkers through Rey, and Rey's going to be kind of like the continuation of the story. In which case I'm saying that I feel like you're breaking the story if you do that, but hey. It's like when they were trying. They basically were trying to do something that they maybe shouldn't have done. All that to say, guys, one day I really hope I get to direct a Star Wars film. But I think it's like one of those things. Will you really have control over your directing if, like, how many people are really involved in like making sure that you do your job, or like, because the thing about studio things is, like, we can blame Rian Johnson all day, but it wasn't his fault for majority of the decisions that were made on The Last Jedi. It's really kind of like he has to sell. He's a salesman. He comes with ideas and has to sell it to the executives. And that's how a lot of studio pictures work. And, I mean, it works, but also sometimes doesn't work. And that's just how it works. But I'm wondering, as a filmmaker, how much control you would really have over stuff like that. Because no one really knows until, you're in that room and you're trying to get something that you think is clearly correct, or to you at least. And maybe the suits don't like it. I mean, I might want to check that Salamander People's Village on the island for an illegitimate spawn of Luke's. Oh, wow, you're knowing way more about Star Wars than I do. Newt Skywalker? I smell a franchise. Newt Skywalker? You mean you might want to check that Salamander People's Village on the island? Are you talking about... Okay, wait. Are you talking about from the animated show Clone Wars? The Salamander people? Is this like a reference? Is this a reference that I feel like I'm missing? I watched that whole show, but I'll be honest, I don't remember terribly too much from it. Also feel like I skimmed that show. Like, I think I watched only the episodes that were like recommended. I didn't watch it as it came out, and then me and my brother went through and just flew through that thing. Which, by the way, great show. Last season was pretty good, but also there were some episodes I was not a fan of. Those aliens that were on the island with Hermit Luke in episode 7. You right. The Salamander people. Did he get off with the Salamander people? Is that what you're saying? You might have gotten drunk and see one of those cow milks. Nah, dude. No, stop. You can't. Mara Jade and Luke. No. That's bad. Mommy, where is Daddy? Oh, Daddy went off to go fight his nephew, or yeah, it's his nephew. Let's see. I'm going to add in a landscape here. Now, they have different presets for these landscapes, but I'm wondering if they've got a crater, because that's what I'm really looking at. That's what I want. If not, I mean, I'm just going to sculpt it myself. It's not that crazy of a thing to do, but I just wanted to see if I could. He evaporated on the rock over there. He levitated for approximately 12 seconds and then evaporated. I also think it's like the whole healing thing that they were doing. It just was weird to me, because if you could heal people, why did no other Jedi ever get healed? Why is that like something that we're finding out through Rey, who by the way had little to no training at that time from a legitimate Jedi. She was trained through Leia, by the way. Okay, that should work fine. I'm just taking these landscape mounts, which, by the way, you can enable directly inside of Blender preferences. And you can just, I'm just using the default preset here. Daddy went to the store for more blue milk and hasn't. No, dude. Oh. I mean, he really did like that blue milk. Was it blue or green? I thought it was green. The stuff he was drinking on that island was green. All right, there we go. Now it's very landscapey because it is. So let's go ahead and select all of these landscape options here and then just join them together. Now, if we go into our sculpt mode, they're all just one big object. So I'm just going to smooth out different parts of it. I just feel like it's a little too pointy and we're going to want it to be less so. I don't know that smoothing is necessarily what I want. Let's see. Kind of want it more flattened, if anything, but I don't want it to change the topology all that much. So let's use the grab tool here and then just manually grab some areas and just kind of line that up with the rest of our environment. And I might smooth it out past this, but yeah. How did Luke die? Luke technically didn't die. I mean, I don't know. He just transformed into the Force, right? Like, isn't that kind of like what the official like idea is? He basically had that whole fight scene with Kylo and then just dissipates into nothingness. Think about the story of Kylo, though. Like, think about it from his perspective, right? So, he's just a kid from a poor family. No, he's just a kid, and he's working, to be a good Jedi, like his uncle, because he's got these high expectations. All right. And by the way, keep in mind, in this time frame, I believe Jedi. Luke created a bunch of Jedi. Like there was like a whole school of Jedi. Wasn't there? And then there's Kylo, and Kylo's like, from the great family, and everybody's like, oh, we expect good things from you, young man. And then out here, doing his bestest. And then one night, he just wakes up to like the whole room lights up green, and he like looks up and he's like, why is Uncle Luke about to slaughter me? And so then, he runs away and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And then finally, someone shows him love and like starts to train him and doesn't have too high of expectations, but he still has these high expectations inside of his head of like, I have to be this great Jedi like my grandfather and like my uncle, and I'm out here just like a crappy guy just trying to figure it out. And then as he goes on, he discovers the dark side of the Force. And that's what, it's his seeking of power. All right. Now, can we necessarily fault the guy? I mean, it's not like he's out here trying to go kill a bunch of people. He just was like trying to get good. He just wanted to get good, guys. I don't think that's a problem, is it? Is it a problem to try to get good? But and then his uncle tries to stop him. And it's like, from this rebel, like, why are we always siding with the rebels here? Like, there's a whole government that's in place. And I don't know, did we ever get explained as to why the government inside of the 7, 8, and 9 were actually bad people? Like, did they do anything? I don't remember them doing anything. I just remember them having an army, and then obviously that makes them a bad person, right? I don't know. Let's see. Screen Rant said that Luke's death scene in The Last Jedi was a perfect conclusion to his iconic character arc. Oh, come on. The hard. True, dude. I mean, like, hey, they probably got paid some money for that. So, I mean, hey, take the bag. I'm not getting paid for this opinion. I'll tell you that right now. No one even asked for this opinion. In fact, they actually are asking me to stop doing this opinion. Weird death. Is it weird? It's kind of like I wouldn't say it's badass though. Like, I wouldn't say that it's like, oh, this is, like, I feel like his death would have been so much better because of the type of character that he was, that he would have wanted to do, like, he would want to go out with his boots on. Not out here just dying by himself, lonely in the middle of nowhere. But maybe that is an iconic death. It's iconic because it's Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is the part that's iconic. Hey, Connor, on big budget movies like Star Wars, how much studios spend on the script? Well, I mean, they all write it. It's pretty complicated. So it's not like they'll buy scripts out of nowhere, you know? Like, so that's called, so let's just say I wrote a script, okay? And then I put together this script and went boop, 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 boop. And then I went over to Warner Brothers and I was like, hey, I want to sell you this script. Back in the early 2000s and the 90s and like all that time frame, I probably could have done that. And they may have bought it for, I've heard up to like $1 million, you know? They just don't do that anymore. So, they kind of develop all of their scripts more internally now, and they don't buy, that's called a spec script. They don't buy spec scripts anymore. Instead, they have what's called above the line writers, and so they will write a script and it will get produced, and then they'll make a good amount of money, and it could be anywhere between $40,000 to a couple $100,000 just to have that script optioned. And I think there's minimums. You can look up all this stuff, by the way, as far as like what the minimums are. I am not a writer, so I couldn't tell you what those minimums are off the top of my head, but there are minimums to what writers have to make, and especially that's what the whole strikes last year were about. And from there, they can get their movie made, and then once it's made, they'll make a certain percentage off of the sales of that film as well. And that's what's called above the line writing, or above the line workers, or people that make money after the movie comes out and then kind of gets sold or has ticket sales or whatever it is, which has gotten weird in the streaming world because there's not exactly like a money method after the movie's out. It's all just kind of, it's just out there on Netflix. They made a sell to Netflix, but didn't Mark Hamill hate how Luke was written in the sequels? He did, and actually I think he's extremely vocal about it. And honestly, his take on it, and I kind of respect this, just as like he's very much of a professional actor about it, was that he had to stop thinking of it as his character, and he had to let it go and just did what he was told to do, even though he didn't agree with it. Honestly, that's good. It's not that crazy of an environment for us to make here. I mean, it's a pretty flat land with just some different objects and stuff that we're modeling into here. I think that actually looks pretty good. What do you guys think? Let's see. Anything off into the way distance? No, it kind of just blurs off. It's all good. We're going to want this to blend a little bit better and feel more dirty coming forward, but That's our crater. Let's grab this whole thing and just go to sculpt mode. I think we can stretch it out a little bit more. So windy outside. Holy cow, I just heard the whole building kind of just like creak a little bit. Just have this hug it a little bit and maybe stretch around. I'm thinking might want to add a little bit of texturing. Obviously, we're going to texture this whole thing here. I'm going to smooth out the bottom of this a little bit so that way it kind of blends in a little bit better. We could do that by a flatten tool, I think. And kind of like an overall grab just to make it feel less pronounced. Great. Go ahead and save that. And then the ground here. Let's just take everything and subdivide it a few times. I'm also thinking we'll probably want to use a multi-res. So let's do that real quick and I'll hit the subdivide button. I'm going to keep it simple, right? Actually, it's just bad topology because of the Boolean that I used, but I'm wanting to kind of smooth out this area here specifically. So I might just add a bevel and just do it this way. Okay. And then even this, though, I'm going to just a little bit, give it a little bit of shape. I feel like if we do that using our proportional editing, that'll... It is dirt. So I would imagine that the dirt's going to move a little bit. For years of just like walking down and grabbing the side as you're going. It's just like kind of pushing it off. I'm looking forward to that VR Batman Arkham game that was just announced. Oh, the internet went nuts. I haven't followed video games. I'm going to ask my professional video game person. Ben, did you hear about this VR game? Batman. That sounds super cool. Are they going nuts in a good way or a bad way about it being a VR game? Because I feel like a lot of people might not like that just because they don't have a VR headset. Although I can see how that's like just such a new idea. Oh, in a bad way. Interesting. I think that because people don't have a VR headset, they would freak out about that because they're like, I don't have to buy a whole ass VR headset just to play this one game. I could see how that could be a problem. But I think that's more of like the future of gaming. I just think it's a bit cumbersome right now to get a whole VR headset. It's a lot to put on your head, you know? It's just like this whole thing. I don't have a VR headset, but I would be interested in getting one. I'm going to open up So I have to download the newest version of, let me do that real quick. I have to download the newest version of this add-on that I'm using, and I'll show you here in a second. I just need to log into my account and not dox myself while I'm doing it. Gotcha. So I'm using, under Blender Market, there's this physical starlight and atmosphere plugin that you guys can go grab. Phenomenal plugin. I've used it so many times. And it gives us super realistic like skylines and whatnot, and HDRI imagery basically. So let me real quick. I want to see if it works to the version. Oh, it doesn't. Well, I don't know if this is going to be a problem or not. So I'm running Blender version 4.1 and it says it works to 4.0. So let's just download it and then I'll see if it kind of works in our specific thing. Just download that now. Quest 3, yes, I've heard that. Yeah. Get the meta quest. I've heard that I've heard it's really good, and actually you could do screen mirroring similar to what Apple Vision Pro does. I've just never used it. Okay, now that's downloaded. I'm going to install our plugin here. So I'm going to go to Preference and hit Install. Under Drive D and Blender, we should have 4.0 plugins, and I'm going to install it here. Let's see if this works. I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll see. Okay. It hasn't yelled at me yet. Okay. These are all good things. I'm going to swap ourselves over to cycles. I talked about this for the last couple weeks, but just so you guys know, I am using the ASUS kind of pipeline right now inside of Blender. I don't think I have already, but I'm going to release the config file that we're using here. I'll send you guys a link to it inside of the Discord. So if you guys aren't part of the Discord, link is in the description to my Discord. And we're going to be posting the finished render there. And then, of course, I'll probably have a tutorial up. I haven't done it yet, but I'll have a tutorial up pretty soon with how to install Blender color management and stuff like that. I actually already do have several other exclusive tutorials that are only up on the Patreon, and that link is also in the description. So if you want to grab the project files that we create here for all of our live streams, those are on our Patreon, as well as some exclusive tutorials. But with that being said, let's go ahead and set ourselves to render view here. And since we don't have any lighting yet, this is kind of what everything looks like. Pretty drab, but let's go ahead and add a new atmosphere in. It's interesting. They have presets now. I haven't updated in a... Dude, they have a Tatooine preset. They have a Tatooine preset. I didn't even know this till just now. Wow. Wow, dude. Oh, they changed so many things. So wait a second. So our sun here. Oh, that's so cool, dude. Okay. All right. I see you. Now all I have to do is just change the horizon here. And let's change it negatively. I went too far. It's a little bit touchy here. Guys, we haven't even done anything yet. This is cool. I like it when I don't have to do anything. Let's extrude this outwards. And then our camera, let's see. I gotta clean up all of this. This is so disorganized. But with our camera settings selected, I need to also change, let's uncheck that now, this to be like a 1,000. There we go. Our ground goes to 1,000. Perfect. We might even be able to... That's pretty cool, actually. I like that. So, without really doing much here, honestly, you guys can already kind of see what we've got. I'm thinking we're going to want the... It's more purplish, honestly, because it's just a little bit lower. Funny, though, they place the suns differently on the preset here. Let's just change the vertical option so it's a little bit lower. Or even a little bit higher, even. Kind of like the idea. Let's just change the temperature here. More purplish. The binary sun. Let's see. Distance is 1.6. Oh, that's really interesting. The phase degree. So we can get the sun on the other side. I just want to match this. That's pretty sweet, guys. And then we can change the temperature of all of these things as well. And then the atmosphere, we can actually make it a little bit denser if we wanted to. So that's 1.2. The denser it gets, the darker it's going to be. I kind of want to, so dealing with this, I know I'm not showing you guys any of the settings that I'm changing here, but I don't know that, do you guys want to see the settings? I could show you the settings as I'm working on it, but maybe I do it this way. That way you guys can see what I'm working on as I'm doing it. I'm going to change the density to be something like a 1.8. And then our nighttime, I'm just tweaking these until I get something I like. I might like it up a little bit higher. I don't know yet. What do you guys think? Higher or lower? Do we want to go for more of a dark kind of like late sunset or early sunset? To me, I kind of think the early sunset feels just a little more Tatooine. But feels just a little more Tatooine. So I want to make the scaling a little bit bigger, probably. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, Ben. Because otherwise it just could feel a little more muggy. The binary sun, though, let's just get the angular diameter here to be a little bit larger. That's pretty cool. I like that. And then, of course, we're going to go through and add in some more just lighting ourselves. Like, we're going to add in our own lights. Recipe for CG artist happiness. MetaQuest 3 and Bamboo Lab 3D printer. Hey, my birthday is literally in like 3 weeks. Guys want to make me happy? Okay, now let's see. Probably, I think this amount of clouds is appropriate. We can even make it smaller. Yeah, the Bamboo 3D printers are the freaking best, dude. So freaking cool. Wait, what do you mean DJI? Is DJI involved in it? I didn't know that they were part of the Bamboo Lab thing. My neighbor has a Bamboo Lab 3D printer. Dude, I can't justify purchasing a 3D printer, though I freaking would love to, because then I can 3D print so many things that I work on. But I can't justify it because the only thing I want it for is because I think they're cool, and I would love to print fun stuff. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to buy like a $2,000 computer, or not computer, but printer. Like, I think that you kind of need to have like a practical use for it. And I unfortunately don't have that practical use. I'm going to grab all of this and just move it towards the camera, just to get a little off camera here. And let's just go take a look at that now. A little bit of a different camera angle. And then, of course, let's see. I feel like we do need to see the inside of. I think it's fine. I'm not sure how much are we really seeing on the inside of this. Let's add a cube. I don't think that really helps. I'm curious. You can always sculpt these parts of the ledge to be a little higher. I like to be able to see that it is a ledge, like it is an opening. And right now I don't think that that really comes across. So if we sculpt this side up over here to be a little bit higher, we're going to darken this through some texture painting that we're going to do. Let's go back to object mode. And then, yeah, we're going to texture paint all of that to kind of fit in that world. Thinking overall it's not bad. Let's get into some texture painting here. And maybe also fixing some things. I'm not a fan of this right here. I think we're using this bevel here. I might change the size of it slightly. I think I just froze Blender. Back to freezing our computer. There we go. It unfroze. save. Hit that save button, boys. When do we not? Okay? When do we not? Do I ever not hit the save button? I always do. Okay, guys? I always do. I'm going to rotate this on the median point, and I kind of want to just get a bit more lighting on this side of it to just show some depth. We're going to trick the camera or the composition to have kind of more of that feeling. I think if we go the yellow route, just having a bit of yellow light or even this orange light that we're having here, what we're doing is we're kind of filling in that area that doesn't have depth otherwise. We don't know how round any of these objects are. So just using this to help create a bit of that edge light. We can change the intensity here to something else. Let's see, let's make that a little bit larger. We might want it to not hit that ground as much. But now what we're really getting is if I take these and like delete them, you'll see that it all just feels more mushy, whereas this feels more like the sun is lighting up things more artistically. And we're going to want to do that for a lot of these objects here to just really make it feel like it's catching the light a little bit better, which we'll know how much we're going to need to do of that once we hit the shading phase of this, now that we've finished with a lot of the modeling. And I might duplicate this as well for these hillside things. And now you can even see the separation between the front and the back here is what I really wanted. And that's to make it feel just a little bit more like there is, you know, a front lip and then there's like this crater in the middle. Finally started using Substance Painter regularly for texturing. It's really nice, and I'm just scratching the surface of what it can do. I would say that is a pun intended, dude. That is a pun intended right there. I'm going to clean up my outliner right now. I think now is a good time to clean it up before we get into more of the shading phase of things. Let's see. Area lights. We throw that all into a single collection. Create a new collection called lighting. And then we'll keep this collection called as a camera. Or even, actually, I don't even know. Let's just change this to model. And then we'll create a new collection called camera. And from here, we'll just grab our camera and move it down. I like to have separate collections for these things. So that way, when I do want to just look at the camera, it's really easy to just jump to that collection. And then I also like to have a empty in here. We'll just, a plain axis empty should be totally fine. And we'll just call this our focus. So now if we select our camera, it's really easy to find it inside of our outliner now just by doing that. And we can go over to our depth of field and find our focus tool. And this now we can make all of our adjustments directly inside of here. So maybe this is supposed to be a little more out of focus, and then that ground in the background is much, 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 much farther away. And yeah, let's go ahead and just start adding in some materials to these things. So first of which, we have the ground here. Let's go ahead and just do that so that we can figure out what the language of everything is in the scene. I'm thinking if we select this landscape and the ground, we might want that to be all just one big object. Which actually is nice because if we do any sculpting now, it can treat it all as just like one thing rather than a bunch of different things. But what we're going to do is add in a new material. So let's go ahead and add a new material here that we'll call ground. Go ahead and save that. And then I'm thinking let's do a vertical split here and then change this to a shader editor. And let's find some new materials. So we should have Texture Haven that we can go to. Let's go find some textures from here. You should have a bunch of free textures, and we're just looking for a dirt. Just dirt. Go to terrain maybe and find something that works really well for us. Baseball playground. That's pretty much what we're looking for, kind of. Dude, so much dirtiness at a baseball like park on a Saturday, hot Saturday on at a baseball, playing baseball. It's rock, forest, coral. I'm really honestly the closest one to it was that baseball one. Ooh, sand? That's kind of correct. Just not the right color, but let's download this. And I'm going to download them as AK textures. So we're going to download this to our correct folder that we're going to want. And once we have that, let's go ahead and just start dropping these in. This will inform a lot of other stuff that we're going to need in our scene, like what those textures are going to look like, how much lighting we're going to want, because the brightness of the ground really controls quite a bit of that. Let's go to the textures here and add in our diffuse, our displacement, our normals, and of course our roughness. Now, I said all of that stuff earlier about the color management because it's kind of important. Since we have proper color management here, whatever we render out of Blender, we could take directly into our nuke and it will look one for one perfect, exactly what we need it to look like. Also, all of the textures that we're importing are going to be tagged as utility sRGB, which is pretty close to accurate for what we need. So let's go ahead and apply all of these textures real quick. We're going to notice that everything does not line up correctly. In fact, it actually looks super wackadoodle in like all the different areas. But we're going to fix all that. So our normals, also we're going to want to convert that to a normal map. And then you plug that directly in like that, and that should get it a little bit closer. But let's look at our roughness. The first thing, I always like to look at roughness because it's just a black and white photo, and we know exactly what this roughness map should look like. It shouldn't be distorted in any way. So if we just drop in like a color ramp here, we can even see like how it's distorting it. And if we go look at it, we can see all the different weird ways that the image is getting distorted. Now, I can't remember, did we use a solidify function on this? We did not. Great. So all we have to do is go into our edit mode here, and if we just select everything and then press U and then Smart UV Unwrap, this should scale everything appropriately to each other and also keep everything pretty close to like, oh, this is going to go up this object here. And that all should work nicely for us. So with that being said, let's go into our material view here. And if we add in our mapping and texture coordinate node, and I'm just going to plug a value in, and by default, everything is set to 1. But if I drag this to a higher value, it's going to scale everything down to a much smaller value, and that will work a lot better for us for what we're trying to do. So we're going to try to find something that is going to fit with inside of our world of how much roughness we really need to have. Might even have it a little bit larger, honestly. Yeah, that's pretty close. And we can also test this, by the way, by plugging this vector over here into the diffuse and just going and viewing the diffuse instead. And should see what size it's trying to do the dirt at. And maybe even a little bit larger. Let's set this to like a 45, I'm thinking. Now, the only problem we're going to get is that we're getting so much duplication back here where it's just like constant duplication. But it works really well for like this close-up stuff. It just doesn't work so great for the far-away stuff. But let's just see how much that's going to really bother us. We are going to need to adjust that here in a second, but we can do that with some more mats that we're going to plug in. So let's look at our principled BSDF. Okay. Now, the only weird thing is, let's see, let's look at base color. Let's plug that in. And then change the saturation here to like a 0.2 or something like that, something a lot less. We're going to try to find that dirty kind of texture that we're going for here. So, maybe even a little bit more desaturated. I know the light is going to make it pretty red, so we're going to try to see how we can work with that. We're mostly seeing it there. That looks pretty good. I like that. Now our displacement. Another cool thing we can do with our material is if we go down here to the settings on our material, we can change our displacement settings to not just displace it via lighting, but also displace it via not just the bump, but displacement as well. So let's go ahead and select that. And now if we go into our settings here, we're going to probably want to take a math node. And I always like to just multiply things, and then we'll just change this to like 0.01. And that's going to affect the amount of displacement we're actually adding into our scene. And the more we do to it, you can see that it's actually displacing it off of the ground, and it's making it so it's not flat. So let's add like a 0.1. You can really start to see that happen. Here, you're seeing it really happen down here. It's kind of making it feel like it's more coming alive and not necessarily just like this flat surface. One thing to take into account for that, though, is that it's based off of the amount of actual topology that you have. So this, for instance, doesn't have a lot of topology because of the way the Boolean was affecting it, and that's causing some problems. So let's see if we can fix that. Might just change it back to bump only. Let's keep it both, but then we're just going to keep it a really small number. I think that's fine. And then the only thing I have to worry about now is the kind of like infinite kind of mirroring that's happening beyond on the ground. So let's add another light in here. I'm going to do an area light. And we're just going to plug it on this side of it. I want to make this a little more maybe blue or something like that. Just trying to play with the idea of something a little more artistic. I think that works. And now with this light, I'm just going to boost it up a little bit more, as well as this one. And you can see how we're kind of creating kind of like this light rim edge here, but then not there. I think my concern with this texture that we have is that it feels too rocky. Doesn't feel like sand, just feels super rocky. Yeah, I'm not a fan. We're gonna pivot. Feels like it just feels too rocky. Let's go back over here and we're gonna look at this baseball ground material. And we'll just replace all of our materials with this new material that we're grabbing. Okay, great. So now I'm just going to plug all of this in. And we're just going to replace everything that we had. So I'm just dragging the normal in over here and then the roughness all the way over here. And essentially all we have to do is just grab in this one, delete the old one, and just do that for all of them. So just do roughness. And we're also going to have to plug the vectors into these as well. And then the playground diffuse, let's plug that into here and delete that there, and then just plug the vector in. And then finally our displacement that we have down here, let's go ahead and do the same thing. Okay, now with this scaling, let's just set it to a smaller number like 30. Let's just look at that again. Maybe it's just I'm not a fan of the lighting choice that we made. This is where a lot of tweaking can kind of just come in to find exactly what we want. So let's see, let's change the vertical nature of this to a bit higher. Okay, the color is correct there. And then let's see, let's change the vertical to be less. Put that at like -85 again. You know what? They probably just in color grading changed the saturation of the ground. I mean, we can do that too. That's probably what we'll end up doing instead of tweaking this for a billion years just to get it correct. I just change the saturation in the composite of the lighting, because right now that's not at all what I would like it to look like. Let's go in and find some materials for the rest of this. Let's start building this out, and then we'll find, you know, let's find a, for not terrain, we kind of want, we don't want terrain. Like the idea of using a cracked concrete material. And let's see, some kind of metallic material as well, probably, for the crates. Probably not 8K for all of these, especially not the crates. So let's just change these to 4K. Don't need to crash our computer as we're doing this, you know? So for the cracked concrete, let's go ahead and start adding this to our igloo, or a house, our hut, our thing. Let's see, cracked concrete. And let's go ahead and start dropping this in. So cracked concrete textures, and then I'm just going to start dropping all of it in. Let's see, our displacement. Our normals and our roughness. Why is this freaking out? There we go. Jeez. Now with the base color plugged in there, this should just auto work because it's just a sphere, guys. So I don't see why it wouldn't. There we go. And it does. Let's change the mapping value of this to a higher value for the scale. I figured we'll also do a lot of hand painting on this as well. So maybe if this is a smaller value. I think that feels about right. And then this can get plugged into all of our other textures that we have as well for our vectors. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll hand paint in the other aspects of it. So we have our roughness here that'll get plugged into our roughness. And then our normals get plugged into our normals, but we have to convert that to a normal map. And this just gets plugged into there. And now this then also gets plugged into our displacement, which gets plugged into the displacement here. Okay. Now we can make some more adjustments on top of this. I'm thinking what we could do is we will want to have some dirtier sections and some cleaner sections. Let's unplug the base color here and just see what that looks directly like. And then maybe we can work with this. Let's see, change the value here to like 10. You know, honestly, that's pretty cool. Why is there like a line through it? Don't know why there's a line through it, but I'm not like, I don't hate it. I love this light that it adds to that. Just add a little bit more. There we go. That feels a little more connected. And then we can use this same material actually for literally every other part of the thing. So let's just select crack concrete. And then the only other thing I have to do is go into it. Oh, well, there's still a bunch of modifiers, so I have to apply all the modifiers. And then once that's all applied, I could select everything and then hit Smart UV Project. And that should just work. It's so weird how repetitive that feels. That feels extremely repetitive. Why are these materials feeling so repetitive today? I don't feel like I normally have this problem with Texture Haven. Usually they're pretty good at not feeling super repetitive. Um, also, normally don't have to scale them up this freaking large, but it's a little bit better for that. And then this one over here will probably do the same thing, cracked 0, 1. And I'm going to select everything and just say Smart UV Project. How was NAB? It was super good. Met a lot of great people there. It's always nice because, especially when you're doing visual effects, you can find yourself kind of stuck in a room by yourself for the majority of the year. So it's cool to get out and meet a lot of the people that you don't normally get to see or get to talk to, and then you get to hang out and go to the different parties and stuff like that. It's super fun. Definitely recommend it as a thing to at least once do to see if you like it or you don't like it. But I have enjoyed it. I've gone the last 3 years and been super enjoyable every time. It's also really cool. I mean, obviously this is the whole point of it, but it's also really cool just to see the new tech that is coming out in this area, like in the new features and stuff that people are working on. Like there's a lot of programs that you may have never heard of because you hear about Adobe because everybody hears about Adobe. But the amount of new software on top of it that other people are doing is also really cool to kind of see those things. And that's the stuff that I really look forward to, is kind of finding out that there's a way freaking new way to relight stuff. And it's like, wow, like that fixed every problem that I ever had, you know, with compositing problems and things like that. So I mean that part right there is just so valuable. Because you don't necessarily get those things. I can feel my energy draining right now, and I don't know why. Oh, man. Let's add crates here. Let's see, I'm going to add in this rusty metal material that we grabbed earlier. And I'll just start building this out as well. Displacement, normals, roughness. And let's plug all of this in real quick. See, that's really dark. Sometimes you could take this roughness, by the way, especially for metallic type things. Let's just look at this real quick. You'll notice that, first of all, it's completely broken. Please don't drain like Luke. I'm trying not to, man. I might take a moment to go get like something to drink or something like that because I actually didn't grab anything before I started the stream. That's what I'm thinking right now is probably the thing that I would like to do. Blender Guru shared a node group that randomized the texture to avoid tiling. Really? Because that's something that I'm like consistently running into as a problem. I would be interested in seeing that. I'm going to make this metallic. I think if we view that now, we're going to get a darker material. I'm going to remove that image that we have. pretty good. It's really subtle, and honestly, I like that. Let's do that on all of these. So again, select all of this, Smart UV Unwrap. Done. So yeah, Blender Guru shared a node group that randomized the textures. I'll have to figure that out because that is something that like I've always run into as a problem. And it's funny because I think other 3D softwares have stuff to fix that built into it. Let's grab the last one back here. Creates. And then this, honestly, I mean, it's just a metallic material, so we can kind of do this for literally everything. And then we won't have to come up with individual materials for stuff. I'm gonna use the crates, but then we're gonna change the base tone of it. So let's call this let's see, let's call this orange crate. And inside of here, we just change our material to something a little bit more orange. Nothing crazy. I mean, just something slight. Just Smart UV unwrap all that. And it's just something, we're just throwing textures on stuff right now. I'm actually, I kind of want to do this after the render. So I have this idea. There are certain things that are clipping just straight into this. And normally we would probably want to do some kind of like sculpting work or sim work. But to avoid that, I just want to try something. See if this looks good or not. But I want to go take the photo after we render it and then place it inside of Photoshop, and using the generative fill thing, we just circle below it and make it so that it feels like it's sand that's coming up onto it. I think that might be like a cool method just to see if how well that works. I'm going to just take a new one here and let's just make this kind of metallic. We're not even adding really any dirt into it, but it doesn't really matter. Metal stand. Metal stand. Like the crates from maybe this. And sometimes like having crates for that, and then let's see, orange crate. And then we'll do the same thing for this one over here. So we'll do crate and then orange crate. Because I feel like we could get away with a lot of this stuff being similar materials because, well, it's all just metallic things in a desert. Also thinking, let's see, let's try this. Let's add a plane in up here. And let's see, the ground here, I'm just going to add in not a constraint. We're going to add in a collision object to it. And then this guy up here, let's go ahead and add in a particle system. And just set this to something like 100. And then the end frame will be set to 0. So the start frame and end frame will be set to 0. And it should just play that back and everything just falls. Just fantastic. Now if we go into our mesh, we have a bolt. Just scale this bolt down. Luke let out his... He just dropped a bunch of bolts everywhere, guys. It's a little dirty. Oh, you do an orange. Kind of like it being a little bit lighter. Yeah, let's do that. So now we have this bolt here. And I'm going to create a new collection called Prefab. And then we'll just drag our bolt into the prefab thing. And now with our plane selected, we'll go to our particle system and under render, change this from halo to an object. And then select our bolt from our list. And now if we hit the play button, it should just drop all of these guys. And now they all bounce. Also, the scaling is super whack on this, so let's just change the scaling of these to be a little bit larger. And then let's turn on rotation. And then let's see the ground here, the collision object. Here it is. We will change the stickiness to be way freaking higher. We'll change the friction to be way freaking higher. And then now, just go to solid view, it'll play back faster. We hit the play button, and then all these bolts are just going to drop to the ground all out here. Now, their orientation is all the same, so we might want to adjust that. So let's go back over here to our particle settings. And then the bolts are R2-D2. No. Let's change the randomization of these bolts. And then let's also change the phase of that as well. And then we'll randomize the phase. There we go. So now we just hit the play button. So now we have all these bolts just laying all over the ground. I'm thinking... does generative fill count as AI art? I used to use content aware fill to help with paintouts beyond clone stamping. Now we've got machine learning to make paintouts even better. Is that bad? No. I mean, it's all part of the process. You know what's funny is everybody's all hung up about whether or not it's art or isn't art. And they're not really thinking about like what makes art, right? Art is just basically an expression of yourself. And if that means you putting paint inside of balloons and sticking it on a poster, throwing darts at it, and that creates the artwork of like what you're creating, well, that's art. I mean, I probably don't like that art as much as, say, you know, this type of art, but that's still art. It's not any less art. Now you're getting into the question of like, are the tools what makes art, or is it the artist that is the one that's making the art? And I would tend to think that the tool itself is not as important as the artist that is creating the work. That's just my opinion. Okay, let's see. We've got our rotation in here. And if I select dynamic, I think that's the only thing I need to do now. Let's hit the play button. And actually, the stickiness on the ground might be the problem. So let's fix that. Let's change the stickiness here to 0, and then we're just going to have the friction set to 1. And then the only other thing is with our particles, we may want to scroll all the way down to our field weights. And I think we should probably be fine. Let's try that again. Oh wow. Oh wow, it's all bouncy bouncy. Let's not make it bouncy bouncy. So I think we have to change the actual physics settings of these particles. So we got velocity, physics. I need also to change the bounciness of the object in which it's sitting on or hitting, right? So we've got friction. Maybe it is stickiness. We need stickiness to be super high. It's just going to make the particles kind of like in different directions. And then now we select this guy up here. And then if we convert, if we go to our modifiers, make instance real, I'm going to then delete our plane. And then now we just have our particles everywhere. And now if there's any particular ones that are driving us crazy, we can fix all of those ourselves. Yeah, my opinion with the AI thing is that if I showed you a photo that I created in Blender and then I composited it, but I didn't tell you that I composited it inside of Nuke, does that make the photo less impressive because I took it to Nuke and I composited it? Then, if I furthermore took it to Photoshop and then without using any of the AI tools, I fixed a bunch of things using AI that I was like, oh, I really want, not fixing AI, but using, if I took it into Photoshop and then started to paint out things and maybe duplicate stuff, and then I started to Photoshop stuff, does that make the Blender render any less impressive because of that? I don't think so. And then now it's like if I take the generative fill crap that Photoshop has and I use that, does it make it any less impressive that I created the original imagery inside of Blender? I don't know. See, if I create a photo and I send it to you and you like that photo, why does it matter where it's created? Why does it matter if it's made in Blender, Maya, Unreal Engine? Why does any of that matter? If you like the photo, you like the photo. If you don't like the photo, then that's fine. Then you don't like it, and that's your own prerogative. But if it is something that you like and it is something that you enjoyed looking at, then I don't see a reason why how you created it makes a big difference. I've gotten a lot of heat for that, actually, that idea that I think that it's okay to be using AI to create imagery. But I don't know that it hurts really anyone. Especially if you're creating the artwork yourself, I don't see how that's hurting you for you to use tools that are available to you. Now, if I, for instance, was going to hire, 20 people to create a piece of artwork, but instead I found out that I can use AI, well, then that could be hurtful towards other people because those people are now missing out on work opportunities. But I'm never going to hire, 20 other people to help me make this live stream photo. So I'm not sure that that really hurts anyone. I primarily, a lot of the times I'm working on jobs, I am a solo operator. So in the end of the day, I'm not really looking to hire a crap ton of people to do jobs anyways. You think that's a time saver? Comping dirt backup on objects for a shot like this would take more time and impact the performance? Yep, true. Like, am I taking 2D assets and then adding dirt into the scene or atmosphere or whatever? Is that bad if I do that in 2D comp? I don't think so. I think that's just how it works. And like nowadays, using AI generative fill is just part of how the process is. If you can incorporate it into your workflow, then that's good. Okay, this ground back there is really bothering me. Also, it's funny how it kind of clips off the edge there. haven't added materials to some of these things. So let's go ahead and do that. Something a little bit darker. That way it doesn't feel like everything is just the same material, even though it pretty much is. I think this one over here can also be crates. And this one right here, let's do that new material. Pretty simple. Pretty simple indeed. I'm not a huge fan of the ground. It's kind of bothering me. I know that we can probably do in some paint work. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Let's add in some lighting to this thing back here. I think that would be helpful for catching the light a little bit. Just add in a nice little light. Just to get some specularity. So we're just kind of faking that a bit. And then I'm going to change the ground to be a different color. Maybe that's all we really need for that. It's just changing the ground. Let's see. I'm going to... This crate right here. Let's do some paint work onto this. And then see where that takes us. Maybe we do some paint work on the overall house as well. But I think this one right here should be pretty straightforward and quick. So let's start with that. First of all, yeah, so I'm going to make the ground look like less Mars-like in comp. Because right now the sun is making it super orangey red. And rather than tweaking with the lighting settings inside of Blender here, I'm just going to take it over to comp and then just adjust the color. That'll just make it a lot easier. Okay, so let's click on the texture paint option now up here inside of our list. And that should jump us over into our texture paint tools that we have. Now, with our crate selected, I'm going to say, let's say image new, and then we're going to create a brand new image called crate dirt. And we're going to set the color to, we can keep it as black. We'll hit new image. And now if we go over to our, let's see if we can find it, our material that we want to have. Let's go to layout. Oh, actually, I'm curious. I've never done it this way, but if I select crate dirt, and then we go up here to this option here and go to single image, and then I select crate dirt. Oh, that's pretty cool. So that way I don't have to go back and forth. Well, similarly to what we did last week and the week before, we're going to load in a new texture that we're going to use, specifically a texture mask. Now, I'm using a texture mask from my own set that I created of surface imperfections. So I'm going to load those in right now. Let's load in our texture here. If I hit open, I find surface imperfections. I've got 6K, 4K, and 1K versions of all of these things. I'm fairly certain we could probably just get away with 1K for the paints that we're using here. And I've got all sorts of stuff from scratches to residue and all that stuff. All this can be found on my Patreon, by the way. And if you guys become the Renderator tier, then you get this stuff for free. So you don't even have to purchase it. But all of this here are just, we have, I think it's is it 30 textures? I don't even remember how many textures I made. But I'm just going to probably grab smudges 1. And we're going to use this to paint on our object here. So let's go over here to our tool settings. And then the only thing we have to do is on our texture, turn that off. Because it auto does that when we create a texture mask. So now let's just let's paint some stuff on. Thinking... Let's just zoom in on this a little bit, and then I'm just going to paint some of this area here. We just want this to feel more like, because of how much like stuff is being duplicated and like all that crap for the material textures, I think if we just do a little bit of hand painting here, it'll take us a long way. Just really quick there, and then that's all fine. Just kind of get the corners, because corners are the things that are mostly going to be catching a lot of this dirt residue throughout the years. It's the stuff that's getting bumped into the most, you know. It helps tell the story too. Like that's really what this comes down to, is trying to tell the story of like what happened to this crate. Where did he come from? Whose crate was it before? What did they do for their job? Those are answers that we're kind of creating here. So now if we take that and we just say image save, I'm going to just save this into our material folder as crate dirt. Now if we go over to our layout, under our crate material settings, I can go ahead and grab a new image texture that will load in here, and we'll find ourselves crate dirt. And if we go view that now, and we view our render view here, we should have a black and white photo specifically of the thing that we just painted. So let's do that. Yep, sure enough. And actually, it kind of updated everything because we painted one object and it got duplicated to everything. That's right. So now if we go back to our principled BSDF now, I'm going to use a mix shader node. And this is going to allow us to have multiple principled BSDF shaders that are going to plug into the same thing. And we'll have this one plug into the bottom rung here. And then our crater as a mask is going to be plugged into our FAC. So we just hide that, throw that over there. Now, wherever we want, we can throw in, you know, some good old nasty dirt, whatever color that might be. I might just do something slight. And you can see already that's adding in our grime to our crate, and that's just free added, you know, materials that we're basically doing to all of this stuff, and it just makes it feel a little bit dirtier, a little bit grimier, and that's what we're going for. So I might even do a couple more things. Let's go to our texture paint option again. AI used for concept seems pretty ethical to me. People pull from copyright sources to make look dev / mood boards for projects all the time. If you want to create a scene from reference, it's there. True. Yeah. And I mean, I've done that on these live streams before. I definitely agree that that is a fair method of going about doing that. I think the really no one's questioning whether or not you can make look dev stuff. I think the majority of people that are complaining about it are talking about it as a replacement tool. And I think just only having that as like you're only going to be using AI, that's where things can definitely get out of hand, and I would agree with that. I'm going to select scratches here. And let's use the rake option and the random feature here. And let's just drag it. Oops, again. Make sure that under your texture, you remove the texture task here. But we're just going to drag in some more paint here. We're just adding in a little bit more detail to some of these different areas. I have that pretty dark, so we might want it to be a little bit lighter. Just filling in a little bit more here and A lot of this is just you kind of like creatively deciding how much you want in different areas. I think overall you're going to want a little bit everywhere. There's nothing that's going to be too clean. And wherever this isn't, it's going to place the other texture that we have behind it, which again is just more of like a metallic source, but I think that this is nice for added detail. I'll maybe even have it a little bit lighter here for part of it. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead and save that and then go back over. The copyright issue, though, is interesting because depending on what the AI source is, like Midjourney, I think, has a lawsuit against them right now. But there are different AIs that are created that are using actually perfectly legal terms of their own data. Because AI isn't really AI. AI is, it's not like one big nasty thing. It's actually data sets and models that are created using different data files. And Stable Diffusion initially was just using all of these images from online, and that's where kind of like the problem came in, was that they were using things that they weren't supposed to be using. And then when we went into the world of you know, specific AIs being made for specific purposes by these large conglomerate companies like Midjourney, for instance, I believe that, I think, if I remember correctly, their AI is completely illegal because they're basing all of their AI off of their own imagery that they have generated. And that's fine. It's when that they're not giving credit to the artists. That's the problem. And as far as I know, I think Midjourney went about it a different way. I could be wrong. If you guys want to correct me, that's fine. But I'm not entirely sure. Let's look at the... You know, honestly, we're pretty close on this. I think compositing wise, we're probably going to do a little bit more work. But let's take these lights here and we're going to duplicate them and just rotate them around just to light up that section over there. And I'm probably going to lessen the amount of light onto it. And again, lessen the amount of light on it. Just to make it feel like there's some kind of light coming up from the inside of that pit. Okay. Let's see real quick. I want to take this one landscape that we have. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. I was trying to create some topology. What did I think of Alien Romulus trailer? I haven't seen it. Is that Romulus as in like Star Trek, like the Romulans? Or are you talking about something else? Okay, I'm going to try this. We're going to see how this looks. Let's go to our render settings here real quick and then change the max samples to 1024. And then we're going to render this out and then we'll see what we could do in some color grading things. If the annoyance that I have with it can't be fixed through that, then we'll have to probably re-look at it. But we're going to set our sequencer here to ACES CG. We'll set our sequencer to ASYS CG. And then our color management output, we're going to override it and make sure it says ASYS CG as well. I do that just to be safe. Then our render settings, let's enable crypto mats. And I think everything else should be fine. But yeah, I don't really have to worry too much about anything else. I think that's all good. And that's all set to GPU. I want to make sure that my preference render settings are set correctly here as well. Yep, that should all be good. Let's go ahead and render this. And while we're waiting, no, the new Alien film, not Star Trek. Okay, gotcha. I wasn't. Then yes, I think that answers your question. I have not watched the new Alien Romulus film. What's it about? Is it interesting? Is it something I would like? Directed by Fade Alvarez. Don't Breathe and Evil Dead. Oh! Set between Alien and Aliens, focused on the young colonists. Interesting. So the colonists that they hear about this location, so they went over there and basically set up camp there. Oh, they're going back to practical effects. Everyone's favorite phrase. Let's do it all practically, everybody, because CG bad. The face huggers won't be CG. Well, so what they'll do is they'll probably film a lot of practical effects, which is good. I always say this. Marry practical effects with CG. Don't just do CG and don't just do practical, because in my opinion, practical is good. I mean, you can tell a movie that's shot in the 80s and 90s, and it has nothing to do with the technology of how they could do things practically. They could do a lot of the stuff they're still doing. We're using pretty ancient technology, or not ancient even, but like, you know, just old school technology to do a lot of the stuff we're doing. But it's like, you know, a hot take I have is Grogu actually, I don't think Grogu looked good. I really don't. They made it look too much like a puppet. Like, it felt like someone was just going with him walking down the walkway. That's what I felt like. They're using special effects team from the Aliens. Well, I mean, that's great, and I think that's awesome. They're wait. They aren't doing to be hipsters. It's in homage. I know, but that's their okay. Wait a second. I'm going to hold my ground here. More like terror film. Okay. Here's the thing. Practically is a big name right now, just to say, oh, we shot it practically. We shot it practically. We shot it practically. Has nothing to do with homage. Has nothing to do with any of that stuff. They're doing that to sell more tickets. And they did it with Star Wars. They're doing the same exact thing they did before. Now, I don't have a problem with shooting things practically, but don't lie and say everything was shot practically when, in the end of the day, what you're going to do is you're going to fix a lot of that stuff in VFX and post and all of that stuff anyways. Yeah, it's all BS. The truth is that they are going to shoot it probably as much practically as they can, and then they'll take it over into VFX later and fix all the crap that they had, because that's the way every movie's done. They always do that. This is like, and they even did it with Mando. They shot more stuff as CG Grogu than you probably realize, because the majority of it was just CG. Anyways, that's my hot box there. I think the thing is that everybody just thinks that, like, oh, they're doing it. It's not just out of the kindness of their hearts that they're doing it. They're doing it because they know that that's what the audiences want to hear. If they heard that, oh, we're remaking Alien, or they're making a new Alien, but then they're like, oh, well, this all just looks like CG VFX, everybody's instantly going to hate it just because of that. And that's more of a problem, not with, you know, that's not the studio's fault. Honestly, it's not the studio's fault. It's more of our fault for letting it happen. Remind me never to bring up practical effects during your live stream. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, whatever. The remote controlled face huggers will look good in some shots, and then look goofy in others, and the goofy, they'll replace it with CG, and they have to. But that's also just because that's how filmmaking, is done. It's a combination of multiple things, like, all put together. No, and I have no problem with, practical effects. In fact, actually, the film we're prepping to do right now, we're doing a lot of stuff practically. But it's that understanding of that, hey, we're going to take the practical elements that we can, and then we're going to try to enhance it in different ways through VFX and CGI. But there's no BS of us lying about it, onto the press releases of that everything's going to be done practically because blah, blah, blah. It looks better. Because that's what everybody says. You know what, Connor? My film is going to have 0 practical effects and will be completely green screen and post like Star Wars 9. I'm not saying that you should do everything in CG post-production. I'm saying that you should have a mixture of both. But don't freaking lie to everybody and say that it's all practical, because it's not. And that's where they're doing. They're lying about that part. That's the part that sucks. And they're really big on that. I never said everything was going to be practical. Okay, that's fair. You didn't. But and that's fine. You know what? I'll let you have that. The truth is that they probably will at some point between now and release of the film say that everything was done practically. They will. Like, that's just how they do those things. The general perception is pitting CG versus practical and saying CGI is lazy or easy. That's kind of like, it's a tired argument. It's the same argument on every single film for the last 5 years. Everybody just says that CG is worse than practical, and we've heard it since Mando season. Wow, no, hell, we've heard it since Star Wars 7 when they first released that, and that was the first time I think that really people were like, "Oh, we're gonna shoot it like how we did back in the day. We're gonna shoot it all practically," and again, it's like, I don't care that you shoot things practically, but don't lie about it, because later, if we find out that you did do VFX, which, by the way, on Barbie, they lied about it. And then, like, I think like the week before the Oscars, they released all this crap about how they did shoot things with VFX, because guess what? We all knew they did. And then they were like, oh, by the way, we did all this stuff through VFX. Can we apply for an Oscar? And it was like, everyone was like, well, wait a second. You just told everyone before that you didn't. So where is this coming from? This is the type of generative fill thing that I'm saying. The audience says CG is equal to bad. It is lazy to skip practical. It's a pain in the ass when they drop it all on CG artists and didn't shoot or prep properly. And then something has to be... Yep, no, I agree. I would agree with that. This is the type of stuff I was saying I was going to use Photoshop for, was just fixing like that, like hard line or something like that. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. Let's do this and call this I'm curious how far we could push this. I mean, I'm just wanting to fix some of the things that I really don't like, so we can do like dirt ground and stuff like that here. I was going to do some color grading inside of the actual like new composite. Is this really even going to do anything? I don't think so. I don't even think... Well, I mean, I don't dislike that. I think that just adds a little extra material. Something that we didn't have to do inside of our comp. This bothered me, but I didn't want to fix the UVs. So let's just do that real quick. We're just fixing things. Connor, if you ever need a reminder to not give a shit about what the audience thinks, just go on Letterboxd. Okay, that's the reason I don't go on Letterboxd. Yeah, dude. I don't... Do I care? Obviously not. Yes. Maybe I do. Maybe that's the reason why I've been ranting for the last 4 hours, is because I care. I care more than I probably should. Maybe I shouldn't care. Maybe that's the thing, right? Letterbox is scary. Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of Letterbox. I don't think I don't know. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I like the idea of letterbox. I think though that sometimes people just go with the flow on what they think they should think on things, and then that ends up getting you kind of like this weird world of like maybe I don't know. I think we've seen it in a lot of movies where it's like people go with the trend on movies are bad. I like to watch movies myself because I hate freaking getting told that a movie sucks and then finding out that the movie actually really wasn't that bad. That's what bothers me, but don't at me. Okay, those were just a few things that I wanted to fix there. I'm going to take this back into comp and then we're going to do some grading. I didn't want to do too much stuff on the side here. I'm just going to take this to matte painting. I probably could have fixed more of those things inside of comp or inside of the actual blender rather than doing what I did, but whatever. So I'm going to load the matte painting and we'll just use this. And that's just fixing a couple things. Honestly, it's not even fixing that much stuff, but I'm going to use this matte painting output that I did here, and then we're going to do a few things. First of all, let's take a grade node here, and then using crypto mats. Whoopsies. You know what I don't like about Letterboxd is the I really don't actually think their UI is that clean for the web app or the phone app. I think the phone app is kind of trash. Oh wait, what am I doing here? Let's just delete this. Fine. We'll do it this way. I think. Hello? What the frick is going on here? Boom. So using that, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to set this to pre-multiply, and then we do have cryptomats that we can also use. So let's see. We want a cryptomat specifically of this building, this section. We're just going to kind of select everything here, honestly. Could do that pretty quickly. And then I'm going to say picker to remove, because you could select the ground. Picker to add, and then okay. With all that selected, I probably, well, let's see. We have our roto mask here of our ground. I'm going to add in another merge node, and then this merge node, I'm going to use a mask of the roto, and then we're just going to invert the selection there, so that way it's only the ground. And now if we go back to our grade node that we have here, we should be able to make some adjustments. So I'm going to, as Ben would say, make it look less like Mars, which we just take the red out of it, honestly. Just something more like that. I really don't like the blue that's being introduced into it. Right next to me is boxes of servos, wires, and boards, and some 3D printers that did mechanisms for facial animatronics. Oh, that's super cool, dude. Okay. that's cool. Let's see. Let's I think with the sky anyways, I'm thinking that another thing that we could do I'm trying to do is I think we want to add some shape into this. One thing we didn't do was in our blender scene, we didn't actually add kind of like a flag behind everything, which caused some problems I think with the ground overall. We can fix that actually pretty easily. The other thing we could do real quick that's bothering me is let's add this down here. Just blurring kind of more of this horizon area. And that just creates more of a horizon. I think that works a lot better. Woo! Again, just blurring that up a little bit. I like that. I like that a lot better, actually. And then now I think there's a few other things. Let's see. Let's add in some tiny bit of glow. Not too much, of course. So we're just going to remove the tolerance here. Then we're going to remove the brightness on this as well. Maybe the brightness about there. I just want to change the amount of it, because we're just going to add an ever so slight amount to the highlights. That's going to kind of just make everything feel more vibrant. I'm curious. I think we're running into some banding issues here, so I don't want to have that as a problem. So let's add a little bit more there. Actually, I think that really works nicely. I don't like how blue the stone right here starts to feel. I also don't like how this just feels so blah. So let's add in a grade node after the grain, because this will be like a quote-unquote post-processing of the camera that's happening here. Let's select this section down here. I might even have it go up a little bit on this side. And then we'll pre-multiply this and blur it. Let's blur it by like 300. And that's going to get us like a nice mask around the edges there. And so now if I go look at this, let's go ahead and change this value to be a little bit darker. That's pretty sweet. I think also we're going to want to change. Let's just add another grain node in here. Just roughly get this selected. I mean, I'm not too concerned about it. It's just a color thing. We'll just add another blur node in. Just blur this a little bit more. I'm going to change the white point here. We're just going to remove some of that blue. Honestly, we can even add a saturation node if we want to into it, and then just have that plugged into the same mask and just kind of removing some of that. I think that works pretty good. Now our roto paint that we have here, let's take this blur function, and honestly, we could probably even just blur some of this, right? Let's change the opacity on this to like a 0.01. That way we have more fine control over this. Maybe even a 0.1 might do us good. And then I like to sometimes blur things out here. Maybe not. Actually, let's do this. So let's go back to this view here. That's good. I'm saving this real quick. And then let's go back to our scripts here. 20. Back in our Photoshop, we still have this open. Let's do some of the stuff we talked about earlier. Let's for instance use a generative fill on that. And we're just going to start making this feel more embedded into the ground and less flat. This one, for instance, feels very just much like it's just sitting there. So we can... I actually even like the contact shadows it added there. Let's... I think that looks pretty good. Another one is just like this whole section back here. Just have more of a dissolve between the two of them, because right now it feels very much like it's kind of just two different objects. That works wonders, you know. I really like the first option there. And then let's see. Feel a little less. Like perfect. Just kind of painting in this stuff. I mean, it's not really painting as much as it is, you know, kind of just adding in that extra sauce. Because, like, even that, like, looks so much better. I'm just going to do this for some of the objects. It doesn't have to be everything, but just a couple things here, a couple things there. That way it feels more integrated into the scene. I did this, so I shot a short film last year, and I did this for one of the CG shots. It was the first time I was like, oh, well, that might actually really work. I went and I had this house that I was comping in to the shot. It's actually in the teaser trailer on my YouTube channel. So if you guys go to my YouTube channel's homepage, then you guys will see it there. But I took the house and I just did the same exact thing to it, and it just felt so much more like a professional, like full ass CG shot. I like this one actually. And then, yeah, this is just so far in the background, but I feel like it might as well. And now I do it for like everything. So if I have like a movie, even with like a moving shot, I'll still like drag it in here, use the tool real quick, and then I can track it and project it onto my scenes. It works really nicely and it looks so good. Okay, I think that's everything. You've been working on projects that involve some cool puppets and animatronics. Oh, okay, gotcha. You can't talk about, but other than Oinks, Futurosa, and Talisman of Souls, Creature Kid did the practical. Oh, wow. Okay, one second. We'll save this. I always figured if I did my own monster film, I would want to be with a good basis of practical, and then build on top of that. I think that's the best way to do it. Okay, that ground feels a lot better. So now instead of just blurring it, we're kind of creating a nicer kind of like setting there. Let's take the toe real quick. Okay, and then I'm thinking a lens distortion, and then we might want to start adding in some kind of atmosphere as well to this thing. Problem with the lens distortion sometimes is that we lose some of the stuff that I think is coolest, so let's just drag that over. And then just blur a few more things on this. Okay. Let's go ahead and save that. Not one. Let's see. I like that. I'm not thinking a lens flare is really gonna be what I'm interested in. But I do think that maybe adding some kind of atmosphere would be nice. So let's go to Action VFX's website. Which, by the way, link in the description to Action VFX's website. And then we're probably just going to grab some different 2D elements. Something like atmospheric should do us fine. Something to just make the scene feel a little bit more dusty. Ooh, that's nice. So we're going to take this fog lingering one that we have here, and I'll drag this into my materials folder. Let's go and just download that. And then we're going to comp that in over top of our image over here. And let's see. Tag this as the correct color input. But let's take this. I'm going to take it before the redistortion, and we're going to merge on top of it this fog that we have. I'm going to scale this. Actually, that's probably fine. And let's use the plus functionality of this. And let's use like a grade node or something like that. Really what we're going to try to do, we might even, instead of using the plus, we can multiply. That looks pretty cool, but it's not correct. But then we take that and then put the B behind it, right? If that were correct. Yeah, no, we're not going to do it that way. But what we could do is use a constant, and then the constant will be set to that weird value that we received earlier, and then let's take this multiply that we have here. Now, whatever we set this color value to, which I'm thinking we'll actually probably do it this way. Let's take that brown. And then now that's going to multiply it onto there. And then we take this, and then we're going to merge this on top of the rest of our scene. So now just changing this color value will allow us to get exactly what we want. So let's use this transform, place this a little bit lower, and voila. Now we've got that kind of like musty effect that we have here. All right, guys. What do you think of that? How's that looking? Looking nice? Okay. There are certain things I don't like about it. But I think I'm not disliking it, if that makes sense. Just see real quick. I want to see what we have on our crypto mats. Materials. Yeah. If we had just that, that would be nice. Anyways, so taking it from the blender, it goes from that to this is basically the changes that we made inside of comp. I think, yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty simple shot, guys. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, thanks. Lighting looks fantastic. Awesome, guys. I'm glad you guys like it. I think that this is pretty close to what I want it to look like. We can always add just like an additional grade node in or something like that if we wanted to go a little bit further with it. I don't like any of that. So we do have this dust, but it's just like an overall layer. You're probably right. We could maybe do something that's a little bit more like dusty dust. Like actual particles. So I have like all this floating ash stuff. I might use something like this. It's not, we don't need ash, but I think that like having the particle itself is what we're looking for. Maybe even, maybe not falling ash. We also have, I thought I had one more. Yeah, dust particles. Dust particles might do it. Yeah, teal and orange. Get all the shadows to be teal. I feel like this looks more realistic, like how an actual desert photo would look versus like the blockbuster kind of color grade that you would have. Let's see, let's drop this in real quick. So ideally this is going to be 709. Just merge this over top of everything here. And we'll do another transform just to get that to work, but now it's just going to be a plus, I think. Let's use like a time offset. I don't want to have to move my actual cursor because I am using smoke as well. Let's see what later looks like. I want it to feel like it covers more of the screen. I like that. Let's do this. We have that. I think that looks nice. Let's add another transform node in. Merge these two together. And then this transform node here, we just move this down and we're going to kind of like duplicate our particles basically. This is going to be a plus. So now we're getting double the particles that we would have. Now all of these, let's use a grade node and then set the white point through this to be more of a brown color. It's a little bit darker. Something a little more subtle. And then that way, that's just adding in kind of like these couple particles that you would have. It's probably really hard for you guys to see on the live stream, but it's just adding in these extra little particles on the shot. You know what we could do is I already have the toe selected here. I could just make this slightly blue. We could take the we could take a color corrector at the very end here and then change the shadows. Through to like blue maybe. I don't like that. Okay. Yeah, you could totally color grade this thing to death. And that's the thing is like I'm not a colorist. I'm a VFX artist. So I'll leave that to the professionals. What do you guys think right here though for the final image? I'm thinking this is probably it. I like that part of adding in those few extra particles. I think that's nice. You know, it just gives it like that extra flair. And we can even add as much more in as we'd like. All we have to do is just, you know, use another transform node, for instance, and then just paste the stuff all over. I'll probably just make that a little bit lower. There we go. And then now that gives us that for our particles. Just clean up my nodes real quick, and then this is what the final nodes will look like for the comp. And then as always, I'm going to clean this up here just for a second. But of course, we also do have, I upload all of these project files to Patreon. So if you guys want to help support the channel, you guys get early weekly uploads to Patreon on there. So if that is something you guys are interested in, then go ahead and jump over there for all the videos that we create. We create the cut down videos as well as all that kind of stuff. With that being said, though, we do actually have all the project files as well. So like if you guys want to mess around with these files and create your own thing, then go ahead and go grab them, mess around with it. Otherwise, I think that's going to be it for today's stream. Streaks off the top of some of the structures to illustrate some dust waves. Yeah, I mean, if we had it animated, I would probably add some kind of like subtle movement like that. I think for this still, I don't know that we necessarily need that for this still, but that's a good idea. Definitely something that we could totally add in to for that. But I think that's it here. This is the final render, guys. You know, not bad for a Star Wars stream. I was kind of excited, especially since it's Revenge of the 5th, okay? And this was well, I guess Revenge of the 6th is tomorrow. Today's just Cinco de Mayo. But, yeah, guys, thanks so much for coming in and chatting. It was fun. It was a good time. I really had a good time doing this. Sorry for being a little bit lower energy for the last half of it. Probably got to get myself some energy drinks or start drinking coffee of some kind, right? But yeah, well, it is what it is. But I'm going to post this to our Discord here momentarily, and then if you guys are part of the Patreon, you'll see that I'm uploading the project files probably within the next like 30 minutes or so. But thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for your time, Okai Sado. Thank you for joining in and you guys chatting. It always makes it a lot better when I have people to chat with, because it's like I've got some people to talk to and rant about Star Wars, of course, because that's our favorite topic to rant about. But caffeine pills are always an option. Or just taking straight nicotine, dude. Just injecting it straight into my veins, you know. Or Adderall or whatever it is that, you know, you take. But you guys have a good one. Stay creating. If you guys do join the Discord, make sure to post your guys' own artwork on the Discord. Love to see it. I'd love to always chat with you guys about the stuff you're working on as well. Link for my Discord is in the description, and I will see you guys next time for Tuesday. We're doing a live stream this coming Tuesday. Talk soon. Bye.